Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the NXTGEN Racing Proto GT3 Championship Season 2, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing. And today marks round 4 of 10 as we look to get underway of our first endurance race round of the season. That's right, you've seen over the first 3 rounds the sprint followed up by the feature, 20 minutes of racing followed up by a further 60 minutes, but today we're going for the full extension. It's a 2-hour test of stamina, and what better place to host it than the classic countryside circuit in the state of Wisconsin in the US of A, known as Road America. This circuit, consisting of 14 corners, is a circuit which is situated within the picturesque scenery, but it is like no other when it comes to the high-speed, high-intensity racing action, with battles galore from corner to corner, plenty of tests with regards to consistency, and also strategy being an undercurrent of this theme, with the fact that all the racing will take place over a single race tonight, and therefore it's all about finding your way from the very respective point of where you start in the field to the very front through pace, strategy, overtakes, and also capitalise on others' mistakes. But as we look to get underway, we look to our schedule, of course, times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Coordinated Time at UTC, and our schedule is as follows. In just under 14 minutes time, we'll go straight to the grid for our one and only racer today, and that'll be the 2-hour endurance. That'll be 120 minutes in minute nomenclature, and that'll be kicking off at 8 o'clock this evening. There's no qualifying session, and we'll come on to very shortly exactly how the grid will be set for the purposes of today's race. But before we get underway with going through our calendar and the rules and regulations, just a quick reminder, you're tuning in live via 3 media platforms which are available for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, if you are a YouTube user, you can tune in tonight via the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube channel. Just go to youtube.com and search for NXTGEN Racing and you can tune in there. Alternatively, if you're a Facebook user like Katie Eames, who we say hello to, and I hope you're doing well, Katie, and I'm doing absolutely fantastically. Indeed, looking forward to the racing action tonight. But if you are a Facebook user like Katie, you can go to facebook.com/groups/NXTGEN Racing and tune in there. And last but not least, if you are a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in on Twitch. We have all 3 chats available, but if some of you may be asking who is TX141, well, allow me to introduce myself as your commentator and host of this series. My name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And I'll be bringing you all of your racing action tonight and indeed over the remainder of the series. But speaking of the remainder of the series, as our drivers continue to practice in the background and get themselves set and ready to go racing, let's take you through the calendar so far and what still lies in wait. So we started off, of course, back on the 18th of January in 2023 in what is the Fuji Speedway, and that was in Japan for the sprint and feature combination there, and we opened up with an absolute classic when it came to intense racing action from start to finish. Whereas on the extended start finish straight or the run through the corners, there were rivalries aplenty, but particularly in the LMDH Gold class, where we saw Benjamin McCluskey and Chris Danes go toe-to-toe from start to finish, and indeed both drivers there evenly matched, and it came down to a differential of tyre wear. Wind forward a week to the 25th of January, we made our way from Japan to Central Europe for the German circuit, the Hockenheimring Baden-Württemberg, and there we saw over its tight enclosure, the circuit was a tricky one for our drivers to navigate the way through with regards to respective traffic classes, but at the same time it did lead to some very interesting undercurrents and themes when it came to major mistakes, significant incidents, but also some drivers really prevailing. But then as we made our way from Germany to the United Kingdom for round number 3 last time out, on the 1st of February, we hosted the racing at Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit, and then our third sprint and feature combination, it was all about the overtaking from corner to corner, straight to straight. And there was no ceasing in the action wherever you looked on circuit, with multiple 3 wide, if not 4, 5, 6 wide in some cases, into certain corners. It was an absolute thriller, and indeed it left us with our hearts in our mouths. And well, it set a very high standard to beat tonight, but round number 4 at Road America, I'm sure it's going to go some way to beating it, if not at least matching Silverstone. Wind forward a week from the 8th of February, on the 15th of February in round number 5, so next week we'll be in Belgium for Spa-Francorchamps at the sprint and feature combination there, the classic Belgium circuit, everybody's favourite Belgian circuit, of course, located in the Ardennes Forest, and we'll be making our way on the 22nd of February back to the United States of America, to the state of Indiana for the Indianapolis circuit, where the Brickyard, with its natural straights and also its complex corners on its infield sections, will see our drivers really take themselves toe-to-toe with one another, and also traffic could be a key differentiator once again, much like at the Hockenheimring. After that, we'll then have our second endurance round of the season, and on the 1st of March, that'll take place at the French circuit of Le Mans, also known as the Circuit de la Sarthe, and well, what a brilliant circuit, a classic circuit for endurance endurance racing, and therefore we could not omit it from our calendar. And then round at number 8 on the 8th of March, we'll be heading to Italy for the Monza Grand Prix circuit in the sprint and feature combination there. That's one that's going to be all about straight line speed and being smart with the draft. Before in our penultimate round and our final sprint and feature combination on the 15th of March, it'll be the Magny-Cours circuit that plays host to our drivers in a highly technical circuit as we revisit France, and the Circuit de Nevers. Magny-Cours is known in full will be one that will really push our drivers to their paces, and then we bring it all to a close on the 22nd of March at the classical Daytona road course. Now, we use classic quite a bit. Of course, we refer to Road America as a classic American circuit when it comes to the countryside. Well, under the Florida sun, the Daytona road course circuit is one which, again, much like Road America, is a great setting for endurance racing, given the fact you have the combination of the oval sections plus the infield section. At Daytona, we bring the curtain down and we get to see who our King of Kings are within their respective classes. But as we look from the season ahead to our Drivers' Championship after 3 rounds, we start off, of course, with the LMDH Gold class. And we can see here that Jamie Dorey leads the way, but by only 2 points over Benjamin McCluskey. Benjamin McCluskey, in turn, is only ahead of Chris Daines based on result countback, with Gaz Williams there only a further point behind. Our top 4 is incredibly close, but it would be impolite of us to exclude SCCR Racing's Craig Jones there, or SCCR Simsport as they're known in full, who sits on 86 points and is also well inside the fight. All of our top 5 had mixed results so far, but it's Jamie Dorey who has creeped his way ahead, and we couldn't get away without saying that he did celebrate his 30th birthday over the previous weekend, so therefore he'll be hoping to have some extra birthday wishes today. However, in P6, meanwhile, Raffaele De Santis on 82 points, the rising star and the man who picked up the double last time out at Silverstone, and can he do the same again today in terms of picking up the win that will put him at the top of the standings? Magna Yonland there in P7 on 79 points, also in the fight right now, trying to get back inside the top 5, and then we have William Fold out on 15 points and not participating as of last round. We then come to the LMDH Silver class, and we can see here that whilst we made down the tone in terms of the pace of the class, it's no different in terms of the intensity or closeness of the racing, with Paul Williams there leading the way on 104 points, 6 clear of Jochen Siegert, albeit the difference between the two of them is Paul Williams, as always, has been Mr. Consistent, albeit a bit of inconsistency in the sprint race cost him dear, but he bounced back in the feature. Meanwhile, Jochen Siegert, very consistent last time out and closing the gap to 6 points, with Callum Jenkins only a further 4 points behind the privateer, who was the ultimate driver on pace, but didn't have it go his way in the races, and then Mark Baker there in P4 and 72 points, also one to watch out for. David Harley, meanwhile, on 39 points, not in participation last time out. We hope to see him return in the near future, and Jason Ashfield and Wayne Douglas are yet to compete. And then coming to the LMP2 class, and we can see here that Kevin Stringer, once again, blighted by the difficulties in the sprint. We know that Stringer is the fastest man in class, it would seem. We know that he is the expert of the feature race. But every time he's been looking to win the sprint race, it's gone wrong, either for his own volition or alternatively an incident that was not his fault. And therefore, tonight, Stringer's purpose will be to focus on bringing home that win and continue to try and extend his advantage, because currently, he only sits 2 points clear of Nigel Stock, and Nigel Stock really was the man to beat in the sprint last time out, but in the feature race, he found himself finishing just behind Stringer when it all was said and done. Mark Sykes, meanwhile, in P3, we say hello there too in the Facebook chat, and doing very well, thank you, Mark. I hope you're doing the same, and it's set for tonight. Currently sitting 8 points off of Nigel Stock, also trying to stay in the fight, but a couple of incidents have cost him dear, and he'll be looking to reverse his fortunes as soon as possible. And Barry Jarman and David Maggioni are yet to compete, although we can confirm that Barry Jarman will be joining us as of that next round, as we're to understand it. Then we come on to the GT3 classes, and we can see here with the GT3 Gold class, the top class with regards to the outright pace of our GT3 drivers, with all the inconsistency over the course of the entire class so far, with many a driver having difficulty in each and every round. It's now Jochen Siegert who has returned to the top of the standings, but only by 2 points over Frederick Dorey. Now, of course, we have to consider the fact that last time out, Ryan Walker was not in attendance due to the fact he was not feeling well, and we are expecting him to return as of tonight, so Walker missed out on a huge number of points, and Siegert has retaken the lead, but for how long will that stand? Because, of course, if we don't factor Walker in, Dorey is a very fast driver in his own right, and was the fastest man at Fuji in the season opener, but a key mistake in the sprint cost him very dear, and since then he's been having to look to recover. Meanwhile, in P3, Magnus Flutum Vikeka there on 85 points. He's also in the hunt for the championship lead alongside Russell Fowler, a further 5 points behind. And then we have a sizable margin of 11 points to Ole Martin Muirk there in at P5, who is only ahead of Ryan Walker based on result countback. Dingen Fairclough, meanwhile, in P7 on 54 points, continuing to rise up through the ranks, albeit inconsistency cost him very dear in the sprint, but in the feature is all about battling hard but not quite able to make the result count at the very end and losing out that potential win, and therefore his progress has been stumped somewhat, but you can imagine he'll be looking to go full attack tonight. Stefan Vessels, meanwhile, in P8, they're not able to attend the sprint but returned in the feature. We're absolutely pleased to see the South African on circuit, and on 41 points, he's now ahead of Gavin Gardner by a single point, with Eric Benson completing the top 10 there, and it's Liam McNeely, Adam Delman and John Higgins Jr. who complete our GT3 Gold Class standings. Coming on to the GT3 Silver Class, meanwhile, it's Tom Bingham who leads the way by 13 points over Baz Meacham, and well, how the story played out last time out, of course, was that Tom Bingham was the man to beat, but Baz Meacham, with his recent promotion to the Silver Class and the Bronze Class, did not let it taint him at all. Instead, he was not phased and pushed on as hard as possible and really gave Bingham every run for his money that he could, but in the end, it was Bingham who managed to stay one step ahead. Will it be the same story tonight? However, that will have to wait and see, with Ben Bennyworth only ahead of Stefan Albanese based on result count back there on 94 points P3, P4, and it's Ollie Wayne ahead of Paul Scott P5, P6. Espresso in there in P7, 61 points versus the 56 of Jack Barker, who was not in attendance last time out, but we see returning today, and Matthew Addy as well, not picking up any points at Silverstone, but looking to bounce back strong tonight, 7 points clear of Mark Arrowsmith, who completes the top 10. Aaron Rezi there on what is 0 points, yet to compete. We're expecting to attend tonight, and he is ahead of Brandon Hay, although we should point out that Rezi will be in the GT3 Gold Class, and we'll explain why that is the case very shortly. Now we come on to finally the GT3 Bronze Class here, and we can see that Georgian Benoit leads the way on 108 points after picking up the double win at Silverstone ahead of Elwyn Sykes. 11 points clear, and right now Elwyn Sykes has got to try and keep clear of the rest of the field, but he's got close competition in the form of Ingar Almklov there on where's 91 points and continuing to close the gap with 30-point advantage over Eric Sveston in P4, with further 11 points over Daniel Stimon there in P5. We then have Jorge Santos, Sean Scooter and Arte Chetzakonstanantu completing the GT3 Bronze Class standings, and as we come onto the Teams Championship, we can see here that Speed 9 eSports continue to lead the way, albeit by a reduced margin there, now standing at what is a grand total of 16 points over NXTGEN Racing Orange. Meanwhile, SCCR Sim Sports only a further 2 points behind, and we really do have a battle building for that championship lead, but let's not count out Performance Link eSports there or NXTGEN Racing Purple, who are on 197 and 195 points respectively, meaning that the top 5 right now is extremely close, and the delta between the top 5 is less than 30 points. Team Slow-Mo in P6 down 184, 7 points clear of their sister team of Leftovers, with DRS Esports in P8 on 176 points and closing up towards the top 5 at rapid rate of knots, with Racing Team Astra and Team Slow-Mo Black completing the top 10. And then outside the top 10, Best of Rest, Verano Motorsport, head of Rocket Racing Stars, Made for Racing and Rossum's Universal Robots. But coming from our standings then, let's quickly talk about our circuit for today. It is of course the full course of Road America. Located near Elkhart Lake in Sheboygan County of Wisconsin, the United States of America, this circuit, as you can see from the circuit map provided us by iRacing.com, is a circuit that consists of 14 quick-fire corners, where the name of the game is to be fast down the straight and carry as much speed from corner to corner in order to set yourself up for success. For as our drivers make their way down the long start straight of into turn number 1, they'll make their way into a heavy braking zone and flow their way out into the kink of 2 and into the braking zone for turn number 3, the sharp right-hand, right-angle corner. Now as they make their way out of turn 3, they'll come through the kink of 3A, making their way gradually down the Moran sweep, downhill into turn number 5 via the kink of 4, and then on the brakes we'll see the apex speed drop to its lowest in terms of the average apex speed for the next few corners. Coming out of turn 5, it's a charge uphill, and as they make their way uphill into the blind braking zone of turn number 6, they'll go through the sharp left-hand, right-angle corner before going on through turn 7 into 8. A downhill run into a heavy braking zone at turn number 8, and then they go through the carousel turns 9 and 10, the double right complex, when it's all about getting on the power and be returned to full throttle as soon as possible through 10, for the simple reason it's then a flat-out run through the kink at 11, through the kinks of 11A and 11B, all the way down to Canada corner at turn number 12. We'll see our drivers reach their highest possible speeds in the run to turn 12, and it's about being on the brakes and trail braking through the right-hander at turn 12, getting through the slalom at turns 13 and 13A, uphill and through the left-hander of 13A in particular, before they get to turn 14, carry the speed through the right-hander, and do it all again, lap after lap for 2 hours. Indeed, a tricky circuit, a very fast circuit with it, and that means that with speed comes hesitancy and momentum, and trying to balance the two could be key. But as we then come on to our rules for today, a quick run through the rules and some reminders, of course. This is a fixed setup series firstly, with setups provided ahead of each round. Driver class wise, driver classes were finalised as of round number 3. You'll see that in red there. So what this means is for any newcomers we get from this point onwards, they will by default be assigned to the highest class within their car class. So that is why Aaron Racey has been assigned to the GT3 Gold class for tonight, given the fact this will be his first round. So therefore, depending on his performance tonight, he will be re-evaluated and potentially assigned downwards if he's not up to the pace of the rest of his Gold peers. But again, we'll have to wait and see. That'll that'll be the rule that is applied from this point onwards. And in terms of qualifying, there is no qualifying session. So how do we determine the grid, I hear you ask? Well, if we come on to our second set of rules for the endurance race, the race shall commence via a rolling start in a designated green flag zone. That'll be the start finish straight in the uphill run towards turn number 1. Drivers shall have 3 fast repairs available, and the grid order shall be a class reverse grid based on the latest championship standing. So within each class, the championship leader starts at the back, and the lowest placed driver in the championship in attendance starts at the very front. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 30 or more instant points, and drivers are mandated in the race to make at least 1 pit stop, where they must take on fuel and change all 4 tyres at least once. If they're making multiple pit stops, they can split the tyre change over the course of the 2 pit stops, of course, and they can take on extra fuel as necessary. That's enough rules and regulation and everything in between. I know you're all here for the racing. Well, we haven't got long before we do go racing, and as we look to our drivers making their way on around at the moment, we do see Stefan Vessels making his way down towards Canada Corner at turn number 12 at the moment in the racing team Astra Audi R8 LMDH GT3, and we'll look in the fastest of our GT3 Gold drivers as he comes up the hill and getting himself all set for tonight. And indeed, as we look across the classes there, a lot of drivers have been in this practice session for the best part of 1.5 hours, looking to get those times on the board, get themselves set, composed, and everything mentally as well as physically. But as we're about to turn the checker flag on this session, very shortly we'll be going to the grid for 2 hours of racing action, and who will come out on top come the finish? That will be the big question that we're all asking, indeed our drivers are asking, as we can see there, Barney flag waving the checker flag on the start finish line. For Nigel Dorey makes his way into turn 1 but decides to miss the corner, and then we make our way to the grid for today's endurance race. So as the grid lines up, they line up as follows. It will be on overall pole position, and for the LMDH's Magna Yonland there for Team Slow-Mo Black. He's joined on the first row by DRS eSports Raffaele De Santis, the flying and rising star there, and can he make it another win today? With Craig Jones for SCCR Sim Sports being joined on the second row by Gaz Williamson NXTGEN Racing Purple. On row number 3 we have Benjamin McCluskey NXTGEN Racing Purple drive, joined by NXTGEN Racing Orange Jamie Dorey, and that's the LMDH Gold class as they line up. And then the LMDH Silvers will start off with Mark Baker for Speed 9 eSports, kicking off our 4th row, joined on that row by the privateer of Callum Jenkins, when then we do have the combination of Jochen Siegert and Paul Williams. Behind them on our 5th row, on our 6th row I should say, will be Mark Sykes in the LMP2s. He starts us off there for NXTGEN Racing Orange, joined by Nigel Stock the privateer, and as we continue on down the grid we'll then see Kevin Stringer for SCCR Sim Sports completing the LMP2s, being joined by Eric Benson from Team Slow-Mo there, who starts off our GT3s and particularly our GT3 Gold class. Behind him on the 8th row will be Gavin Gardner for Rano Motorsport, being joined there by Stefan Vessels racing Team Astra. We hear that Gavin Gardner starting from the pit lane, and there'll be Ryan Walker and Ole Martin Mjörk, followed up by Magnus Birkeka and Frederick Stensborg Dere, and then Johan Ersson and Aaron Racey will be starting on the 11th row. Racey, of course, starting at the back of the GT3 Gold class as he's yet to compete in the championship. Jack Barker and Espresso Rian will be starting on our 12th row, and as they continue on down, we then do say Paul Scott and Ollie Wayne, followed by Stefan Albanese and Ben Bennyworth, Vance Meacham and Jorge Santos, Daniel Stimon and Eric Silverstone, Ingot Almklov and Jordan Baywa, and that completes our grid, ladies and gentlemen. And it is time we have to cut to the front of the field here because we're about to go racing as our drivers make their way to the timing line, and it's a Magna Yonland to take us to the green. And it's lights out and away we go here for round number 4 in the first endurance race of the season. This is the charge to turn number 1. Yonland goes as late as possible as they head on down, but already Craig Jones up the inside as they head into the braking zone here, and as they make the way on through, everybody seems to make it safely in the MDH Gold class. Meanwhile, further back, we've got multiple cars already. That's Mark Sykes, and I believe also what is Nigel Stock. In fact, we've got all of our drivers off there. Meanwhile, further back in the GT3 Gold class, we can see here everybody trying to pick a fight as Callum Jenkins left high and dry on the outside as they make their way down through turn number 3. But as they come roaring on through the right-hander here, we've got more drivers off in the rear of the pitch. That's Vance Meacham going off wide, then the GT3 Silver class, and also with, I believe, Aaron Racey being taken off the circuit with him. Meanwhile, looking back to those on circuit at the moment as they all come down through the kink of 4 and in towards turn 5. We see Ingot Almklov in the GT3 Bronze class trying to battle with what is there, Jorge Santos just in front of him as he gets back onto the brakes. Meanwhile, at the inside, that is, I do believe, unless I'm mistaken, that is one of the Ferraris, and with that, as they make the way up the hill, that is none other than Jordan Baywa, who goes up the inside and takes the position of Almklov and takes with it P3 in the GT3 Bronze class. But meanwhile, as we look back up through the field, we can see Paul Williams here up the inside of Jochen Siegert as they make the way through the carousel in the LMDH Silver classes. They roll the way on down through turns 9 and 10 and head up towards the kink, hard and fast through here, completely flat out as they go through turn number 11, and as they make the way down towards Canada Corner. Meanwhile, we do look back to our GT3s here, the GT3 Silvers, and Ollie Wayne stuck behind Jack Barker at the moment as they come on through. and down as they make the way in towards the next sequence of corners. And of course, here coming through the King, it's going to be a flat out run. The Mercedes will be able to use its straight line speed. That Audi no slouch, however, when it comes to being up through the gears, albeit it does struggle a little bit in 6th gear as they make the way towards the next braking zone. Meanwhile, Paul Scott here battling side by side with your bronze leader of Daniel Stimman as they make the way into turn 12. Then he backs out of it. Meanwhile, Jorge Santos being passed there by Julian Bayrois, who goes immediately up the inside and not wasting any time as Bayrois trying to get towards the lead of the class. But as they make the way up the hill through the run of 13 and 13A, we look from them to your race leaders here overall and in the LMDH Gold class, and they're already making the way into turn number 3. And it's Raffaele De Santis, your DRS eSport driver, who is currently leading overall in the LMDHs ahead of Benjamin McCluskey, with Gaz Williams and Jamie Dorey not too far behind as the top 4 there, separated by only 1 second between all of them, continue to fight the way on down the hill. But as they make the way down towards turn number 5, I think they'll stabilise for the time being, and Jamie Dorey, of course, at the back of this group, trying to find a way to save a bit of fuel versus his 2 NXTGEN Racing purple counterparts, albeit he's racing for the sister team of Orange, and therefore he won't be looking to work with them too much. Meanwhile, as they make the way on through, we've got quite a bit to dissect on that open lap. We will try and dissect it as soon as possible for you, ladies and gentlemen, as we do get some replay starts coming in, because a lot happened at turn 1 and also turn number 3. But as we look to Ingot Outclop here, the Team Slimer leftovers definitely right now being a little bit left behind with regards to the pace of the GT3 at bronze class. But again, we only know that there's 1 pit stop required from our drivers. Could there be the prospect of 2 stops versus a 1 stop here today, or even potentially 3 stops depending on the fuel situations? We see Outclop up the inside here at Silverstone, and as the 2 Team Slimer drivers battle their way through the left-hander, well, they come through turn number 5 here, 2 wide up the hill they go. It's going to be Outclop's to lose here under braking into turn 6. It's a 1 wide corner, and as he goes on the inside there, gets it done very nicely and takes P4 back. Meanwhile, we look up to Daniel Stimon here as Mark Sykes in the LMP2 trying to pick his way on through, but Sykes is going to have to be bold around the outside. As meanwhile, that's a car going sideways, and that's Ollie Wayne getting it wrong coming off of what's turn at number 8. The car goes on round, and Wayne's misfortune just continues to curse him as he now waits for everybody to get back onto circuit as he makes his way through and onto what will be his next lap. But meanwhile, looking from him to Ryan Walker. Well, Ryan Walker's made some early ground here as the privateer right now battles with Stefan Vessels into Canada corner as he comes up through the right hand here at turn number 12. Well, right now the privateer definitely feeling the pressure, running in the Audi engine Lamborghini Huracan, of course, the same engine that's in the back of the Audi that's pursuing him. So therefore it all comes down to the driver and also making the most of the chassis available to them. Both of these machines being mid-engine rear-wheel drive, but the differential between the 2 of them being the Lamborghini typically a little bit more of a stable car in the mid-engine rear-wheel drive category compared to the Audi, but with stability of course comes less aggression into corners and therefore less overall speed if you can use it to your advantage. But in return, the greater stability means the car's more likely to be with you all the way to the end of the race and not kick you hard when you're on heavily worn tyres. Alternative when it's got tired arms and legs behind the wheel. But meanwhile, as we look back to Ben Bennyworth here, battling side by side with Stefan Albanese on the outside of the right of your picture. Albanese defends on the inside, goes a bit deep under brake, and that's going to cost him the run off the apex of 1. And as they make their way down the hill through 2 and into 3, Bennyworth cuts it back here and he's up the inside in the Porsche. But it's going to be a test here of straight line speed because the Porsche is not known for its straight line supremacy. It's known for its cornering supremacy as they make their way out of the corner. Daniel Stimon tries to come on through here, and the GT3 bronze class leader wants to try and gain as much time and ground as possible as soon as possible, and you can understand why, for the simple reason he does not want to waste any time trying to pick his way on past the GT3 Silver. So he can see a gap, he's going to go for it as Albanese comes from a long way back there. I thought he was going for the move versus Bennyworth, but in the end just asserting his authority on the inside line versus Stimon as they make the way into turn number 6 and carry on through. But meanwhile, speaking of carry on through, Benjamin McCluskey with some technical issues we believe is dropping down the order, and it may be an early retirement for McCluskey as meanwhile, oh goodness me, and that's Walker around, and with it Magnus Fulton Mikirka has also been in contact as the bonnet comes off the car, and that is going to be very likely, if not a tow to the pits, then definitely a drive to the pits, because both drivers there in a major shunt, particularly Mikirka, went head first into the tyre barrier with regards to the front of the car, and when you hit that square on, it is not good news. Thankfully the engine's in the back of the car, not the front, but I wouldn't be surprised if that front suspension right now has been damaged on both sides. Oh goodness me, as there we can see trying to come on through, that is Gavin Garn, who just about ready crosses off but brings it back on. I think the runner motorsport driver they're trying to carry the momentum around the outside and not too pleased with the fact that the door shut on him before he could really stop the car, but as he brings himself on through. Meanwhile, Baz Meacham here trying to now gain a bit more ground versus Aaron Racy as they make their way down towards turn number 12. Onto the brakes they go, and as they come on through into the right handle right now, the Welshman has got all the hard work to do, and he's given himself the hardest task in the world, getting the Vatties out to recover his way all the way out through the field. Meanwhile, his main rival at the very front of what is there, the GT3 Silver class, had a bit of a quieter run so far, and we say his rival at the moment. Of course, we don't have Bingham in attendance today, so what we do have instead is your lead in the GT3 Silver class at the moment, where is Jack Barker, who continues to run the way for Made for Racing and looking quite calm and composed at this time, but of course it could bite at any moment, and that's not just put the commentator's curse on him, but for any of our drivers here, a mistake is never too far away if you push too hard, particularly in the Audi R8. But as we look from our GT3 Silver leader to our GT3 Gold leader, here he is in the form of Eric Benson here, who steered clear of all the drama in the opening lap, and really has had a solid run from the start of this race, albeit we've only gone 7 minutes into the 2 hours, so we've got a long way to go, but you can imagine with the time remaining, our drivers right now will be looking to settle down into a rhythm as soon as possible. But as he heads on through there, what is the run at turn number 7 down into 8, getting himself set for the braking zone very shortly. We're coming on through, and Stefan Vessels is not too far away, and right now Vessels is trying to gain ground gradually here, albeit losing a little bit of time compared to his rival on the last lap, losing approximately 8 tenths of a second. But then again, he might have had to negotiate a bit of traffic trying to come on through. Speaking of traffic, Magna Yonlund, they're showing the prowess of the downforce of the LMDH BAM hybrid BMW in terms of being able to use the downforce to just go around the outside of the carousel. It's amazing how much speed they can carry on the non-natural racing line. But as they make their way through the kink right now, both drivers carrying on through and looking to further their own respective races. But with that and with a little bit of breathing room, of course, we look up to the front of the field. Here is Gaz Williams, and that gives us great opportunity to start to go through what exactly has happened over the course of that opening lap after the green flag sequence. So we start off by taking a look back at Callum Jenkins. This was in the run down towards turn at number 1. Now into the braking zone, Callum Jenkins just goes a little bit deep on cold brakes there and misses his braking point. Meanwhile, Nigel Stock involved in a bit of momentum. Mark Sykes and Kevin Stringer behind involved in contact. Now as they made their way down, focus on the LMP2s here. Stringer on the left of the picture, Sykes covering off, and the two of them in contact there. Now I think Stringer would argue that he was blocked off. I think Sykes would argue that he covered off the inside line and Stringer needed to back out. But either way you look at it, both drivers there in a major shunt together. Nigel Stock just with a little wobble that cost him very dear, but surviving by comparison. And then as we continue to look back to what happened on the opening lap, we need to take a look back at what exactly happened to Aaron Racy and Baz Meacham into turn 3. Now as they made their way down the hill, you see Baz Meacham and Racy. They're racing on the right of your picture. Meacham comes on down, and Meacham in a little squeeze there versus what is, I do believe, the PROTO Australian. And in the end, Racy not in any trouble whatsoever until Meacham came on through. We take a look back from Meacham's on-board perspective, and I think here he's going to get squeezed as he comes on down and just gets pinned slightly on the left-hand side of the car by Racy, albeit I think he's just come slightly across there based on what we've seen. We could be wrong on that, but Meacham now I think having to find some space, but in the end the space not being wide enough for the BMW M4, and well, for the privateer it went wrong so early on in the race, but he's still got plenty of time to bounce back, and the major wound to the car will be a little bit of aero damage, but more importantly a bit of excess tyre wear with regards to how the tyres have been quite worn into with regards to that slide off circuit. But as we return to our live pictures at this point in time, we do look here to Jack Barker being passed by Espresso Rian as the team slowing leftovers trying to make his way out the inside. I think Barker there with what was a bit of an error coming through turn at number 8, and as they make the way down through turns 9 and 10, roaring on through, and Katie into the Facebook chat very importantly saying that with regards to endurance races they are the best, but also anything can happen. Let's just hope the start is clean. We've had a relatively clean start, albeit a couple of major incidents in particular classes, and the LMP2s being massively affected by the incident into turn at number 1, and it really has opened up the delta in the class right now. Nigel Stock holding a 27.2 second advantage over Mark Sykes, who in turn is almost just over 1 minute 10 seconds ahead of Kevin Stringer. In fact, to be a bit more precise, it's 1 minute and 7 seconds by comparison as our drivers continue to charge on. As they make the way on around, we've got Callum Jenkins into the pit lane. As I look at my commentary proof window, so he's decided he needs to get something done with the car. Now, whether it's actual damage on the car, alternatively, whether he's decided to go for an early pit stop and also do some repair work, that's the only thing that he can tell us. But meanwhile, Magna Yonlund here picking his way on past Mark Sykes, and we'd expect that on the straights, given the speed differential, the LMDHs versus the LMP2s, but it's in the corners where the LMP2s will really close up under braking, and also with regards to their average apex speed, because keep in mind the LMP2s do have access to anti-lock braking, our LMDHs do not, and therefore they have to feather the brakes much more gently in order to protect the tyres and also prevent any further lockups. But meanwhile, as we look back here to our GT3s, Ollie waned up the inside of Aaron Racy as they make the way up through turn number 1, up the inside quite cleanly there for Next Gen Racing purple driver, and not having to worry about any potential counter-attack down into 3 with a bit of neutralisation there from Craig Jones. He comes on through, running P4 is Craig Jones in the LMDH Gold class. So you can see there, impacted by the start of this race. In fact, we need to take a look back at what happened to Craig Jones. We've got a replay coming up shortly with regards to that, but it was much later on the opening lap compared to where we saw other incidents. And in fact, we have a replay as of now. This was in the run up towards turn number 6 and just missing his braking point. No, the rear of the car jutting round, and then well, that was the number 77 car that came into the side of Jones, and Magna Yolland having no ability to react to that. I think not expecting Jones to roll sideways off the corner apex, and the SCCR SimSports driver there, well, not coming into the pits, but definitely having to nurse a wound on the left-hand side from the driver's perspective of the car. But quite an unexpected instant there, and well, as the drivers made the way on around, we also had a little bit later on, I do believe, a bit of an incident for one of our drivers. In fact, we can take a look back at what happened to Callum Jenkins on lap 2. At the very same corner here, the privateer, and was it a similar state? In fact, no, the rear of the car just completely going round there under braking on the rise. Well, that was unexpected. And then for Jochen Siegert, well, as he made his way onto lap number 2, this was at turn, we believe, turn number 8, just runs the car a bit too deep and has to let go of the brakes. You can see the front tyres starting to lock up and decide just to let the car roll off circuit. As he made his way around. One other incident occurred on lap number 2 was Ollie Wayne from the GT3 Silver class, and this was in the run on through turn number 8. The rear of the car just going round there, a bit of power oversteer, and the rear just letting go. And so many drivers have been involved in incidents early on, and it not working out for so many. And well, a lap later, of course, we had Ryan Walker in a very similar spot as he made his way down towards turn number 8, chasing after Stefan Vessels. Here was the GT3 Gold driver, as he came through the corner, rear starts to go around, and the car's only going one way, and there was that impact, of course, with the number 22 car of what was at the time in the number 22 of Magnus Flugsen, who went into the tyre barrier. This unfortunate for Walker and very unfortunate for Bukeka as well. Nothing they could do about that other than just try to settle their differences. But as we return to the live pictures, and we'll continue on with the racing here, we've definitely had quite a few instances. In fact, we've got even more instances have occurred whilst we've been taking a look back at what's happened. Road America being absolutely punishing to our drivers, and we've had a major incident involving, I do believe, Jordan Bevois, who was our GT3 bronze leader, and we now have a new GT3 bronze leader in the form of Rossum's Universal Robots driver, the Czech driver of Daniel Stimon, as he makes his way down towards turn number 8 right now, rolling on through the left-hander, and well, looking quite comfortable at the moment. Bevois only 5 seconds back and hunting him down at rapid pace currently as they make their way through the carousel once again. Now rolling on through here, of course, we've already seen such a high rate of attrition when it comes to mistakes at the circuit, and we're only just reaching 15 minutes in to this 2-hour race. We've still got plenty of time to go, and with that time that does await us, the question may be asking already is, we've got such a high rate of attrition, what can we expect as we move our way towards the end of the first half an hour, into the second half of the first half an hour? Well, the thing we'll expect now is that our drivers will start to settle down and focus more and more on just consistency and managing the car to that first pit stop. An example of this where you can't calm down is Paul Williams versus Mark Baker, as Baker up the inside there into turn 1, and the Speed 9 eSports driver teammates, of course, but at the same time competing against one another. Great little rivalry down in the paddock between the teammates, and as they make their way through turn number 3, Baker up the inside there quite comfortably, and I think Williams decided not to fight it too hard, instead play the long game here of just tucking behind his teammate and do some fuel stamps, some lift and coast on into the braking zones, and also in the toe down these long straights. He can short shift a little bit and therefore save what is the usage of fuel. And of course, if he brakes more gently and earlier, the thing he will be costing himself will be a little bit of hybrid recharge, because all the recharging of the hybrid of the LMDH cars is done under braking, and of course you really do want that heavy braking to recharge the battery, but in return, if you're taking a much lighter approach, you're losing that potential recharge potential. But as they make their way down towards turn number 8 at the moment, Williams will be focused on one thing, and it's keeping Baker well in his sights, but also getting the car to the first pit stop, and that way he does give himself a little bit of a breather here, because of course with an endurance race you can't run at 100% for the entirety of the race. It doesn't matter what level of driver you are, whether you're a rookie through to the ultimate professional, there is a point where running at 100% for so long will lead to you starting to make key mistakes. Even the smallest of ones, they will creep in, and therefore you imagine our drivers will be pacing themselves right now after a very frantic start. They'll be looking to turn it down a notch potentially, alternatively they may turn it up to go hunting after positions, but either way they will be now starting to gauge, where am I in the field and where do I want to be? before I come in for my strategy, or do I need to adapt my strategy to respond to where I am currently on the grid? An example of a driver who may need to adapt his strategy, and we see him here, Aaron Rezi, as he makes his way down towards turn number 8, going around the outside there of Eric Silverstone, the GT3 bronze driver. Didn't make it too hard for the GT3 gold driver on his debut, and Ryan Walker trying to come through as well through the carousel as we jump on board here of Walker as he makes his way down through turn number 10. Now in the charge through the long right, and now heading up towards the kink here. Absolutely flat out will be the run through the right-hander. In the toe there of Rezi as he makes his way on through. You can just see there that gauge of speed. 5th gear, very shortly hitting 6th gear. He's got the run, as he got the move into turn 12. He's going to look for it here. Rezi, I don't think he's going to have any response as he looks up the inside into Canada corner, and Ryan Walker gains another place. And well, there you can just see the overspeed with the toe, plus the natural top end between the two cars as they make the way up into 13. Ryan Walker now definitely having to fight back hard as we see him there squirming his way back into the asphalt as he heads through 13A into 14, and Walker not slowing down at all as he gets ready to go onto what for him is now going to be his 9th lap under race conditions. As he makes his way across the timeline up his inside is making the yon them there as they head on to the next lap. Each of their respective laps, of course, with the LMDH is now a whole lap ahead of the field in terms of between themselves and the GT3s. But as the racing continues on here, we look from our GT3 Gold revivalists through to our GT3 Silver leaders, and here is Ben Bennyworth right now ahead of Jack Barker, but both drivers here playing their own respective race in terms of just focusing on what they can do, as Bennyworth goes a little bit deep there down to turn 5 but brings it back together, and Barker in return having been recently passed by Bennyworth, I think just designed to try and stay it with the Porsche driver but not put too much pressure on this race as they make their way through turn 7, because again, as we said earlier, we've seen such high mistake potential so far from so many drivers getting it wrong in some critical corners, and their race is completely unfolding. And now as the tyres are up to temperature, this is where you do not want to overheat the tyre, because you need this compound to go a long way into this race. You need it to try and go in the GT3 class case at least a good 45 minutes before you consider swapping it out for the new compound, or at least changing at 2 tyres. And with this circuit being very aggressive to the left side tyres in particular, we've got a lot of extended right-hand corners where the tyres put through excess force. We can see now as Bennyworth here rolls his way down towards turn number 12, just keeping it smart, keeping it simple, and getting himself set to battle if he needs to be versus Barker, who looks up the inside but backs out there by pulling those out of the toe. But as they make their way up towards the end of the lap, meanwhile we look to Mark Baker here. Oh goodness me, what on earth has happened to the Speed 9 eSports driver who has had to be towed to the pits, and Paul Williams is now back in the lead of the LMDH Silver class. But there's a story to this, and we're about to find out what on earth exactly happened to Mark Baker. Well, this was in the run down towards turn 1 now behind him. That's why our LMDH Gold drives number 13 car, but Baker not in contact there, just runs wide, car to the tyre barrier and ping-pongs on one wall to another, and in the end you're just a passenger in the car, and Baker waiting for cars to come through and then getting the car off circuit as quickly as he could, but not the way he wanted it to go whatsoever, and that explains the story. A nightmare moment for the Briton from Speed 9 eSports. But as we return to the live pictures now, well, his loss is Paul Williams' gain, albeit Speed 9 eSports will not be happy to see that one of their drivers has had a huge knock to the car, as already we do have some pit stops coming up for Nigel Stock and Mark Sykes. You see there on the LMP2 chart on the left hand side of your screen on the timing tower that both Stock and Sykes into the pit lane, and this may give Kevin Stringer an opportunity to start to get back into the race, given the damage he picked up at the start, and also the fact he's already been into the pits once in order to repair it. But that's why our drivers have been given free fast repairs. It's because we are expecting incidents to occur, and therefore our drivers will make use of those fast repairs in order to get the car back up to tip-top condition as soon as possible. But as they make the way on through it, nobody wants to use those fast repairs if they have to. They'd rather make it through the race unscathed with regards to damage. But as we do see Paul Williams coming on through, we look to Nigel Stock gradually making his way out of the pit lane, and will Stock currently leading the LMP2 Dallara class as he heads into turn number 1 once again and carrying on his way. Now, of course, this may be his first scheduled pit stop with some repair work to the car. We know he had that off on the opening lap, and that may have just done a little bit of bad work to the car, but at the same time putting some fuel in potentially, because it was an extended stop. But as he makes his way through turn number 3, back up to speed once again, and we'll have to wait and see where he fits into the natural order. Speaking of natural order, that means now your new leader overall, with the pit stops that are occurring, also the mistakes for a number of drivers. Your new leader overall and in the LMDH Gold class is Raffaele De Santis here for DRS eSport, and right now running an advantage of 5 seconds over Gaz Williams, as we look back here to Williams making his way through turn 7 into 8 and 9, and very shortly into 10, and the next gen racing purple driver trying to keep the hunt on versus De Santis. And when I caught up with Williams in the pit lane just before he got into the car in preparation for today, The thing he was telling me, and he confided in me with regards to this, is that he's feeling quite confident going into tonight in terms of his pace, but also his consistency, and he did feel as though he has a bit of an edge over the rest of the gold class. Now, of course, saying that and looking at the pace at the moment, it does look as though Williams is matching De Santis. We've got a car parked up there, and that's Racing, who's just parked up in the exit of Canada corner. We'll try and understand what exactly happened there very shortly, but the challenge for Williams will be how much can he bring that gap down to De Santis if he can at this point in the race, as Racing has had to be towed to the pits, so we will try and find out what exactly happened there very shortly. But Williams right now on the charge here, running the comfortable LMDH Gold P2. But meanwhile, looking from him to Baz Meacham, with one of our shining stars in the GT3 Silver class. And right now the privateer continues to try and go on the offensive. His next target is Paul Scott, as there's Scott on the outside in the run down through 4. Into 5 they go. Meacham's going to look up the inside here with the overspeed in the German machinery. And as he breaks his way on through, it's the battle of BMW versus Audi. Gets the move done there quite comfortably, and I don't think Paul Scott worrying too much about fighting at the moment, instead focusing on just running his own race. As they come through turn number 5 and in turns 5, 6 and into 7 shortly. The Welshman right now definitely on a chance back up through the field, but how far can he rise given the fact that he's lost a lot of time? But his pace right now looking strong, and in fact only sitting 10 seconds off of the leading GT3 Silver driver of Espresso Rin. You would imagine that Meacham is definitely on course to get himself right back into that mix before we do get to the end of the first hour, given the relative delta pace. To put it in perspective, Espresso Rin's last lap at 206.93, Meacham meanwhile at 205.16. He almost took a whole 2 seconds out of the GT3 Silver leader. But again, how much extra fuel is he having to use? How much extra tyre wear is he having to put through the car in order to be on this pace? That's the dilemma, and the one thing you do not want to do. You have to essentially have that trade up in the end in terms of how hard do you push versus what does it do to mutate the strategy. And I think Meacham is going for gold now in terms of he's got to go all in at this point until he's right back up there battling for the lead. If he gets within about 3 to 4 seconds of the leader of the class, then he can start to turn it down and put himself back on the strategic footing rather than his current footing, which is he's got to charge on and look for a way to get back into the lead of this race. But he makes his way onto the next lap. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, here is Ole Martin, the Team Slow-Mo driver from Norway. Of course, having started from the front of the GT3 grid, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 3 at the moment, he's got the pressure of Ben Bennyworth behind. Thankfully, they're both GT3 drivers, but in different driver classes. Meanwhile, being a gold driver, meanwhile Bennyworth being a silver driver, but Bennyworth keeping his gold counterpart honest as they make their way down the run for turn number 5. As they head on down the hill. Meanwhile, we have got a bit of change further up the road in the LMDH class potentially here, with Craig Jones under a bit of pressure from Magna Yonland as they make their way through at turns 9 and 10. In fact, I think Craig Jones has found his way on through quite recently, and we do have a replay as to how that pass happened. We was in the run from the kink down towards Camden Corner, and we can see that Yonland defending, but cutting back to the outside. Jones up the inside of SCCR Simsports, and Yonland just simply going a little bit too deep on the outside, couldn't quite cut it back, and Jones gets it done with a late feint on the inside, and a very nice move for the Briton as he made his way up towards turn 14 and got it all sealed and done before the start-finish straight. As we return to live pictures, Jones trying to break away now. His next target will be Jamie Dorey, but Jamie Dorey is the best part of what is there, just a little bit under 50 seconds up the road. In fact, sorry, we should say 2 minutes up the road as they, not 2 minutes, goodness me, that's a bit of an exaggeration, a minute up the road as they make their way on towards turn number 1 once again. As they charge their way on through here, the LMDH drivers. Meanwhile, in the LMDH Silver class, a bit further up from aforementioned LMDH Gold drivers, Paul Williams here for Speed 9 eSports, still leading in the LMDH Silver class, and now by a comfortable margin of 9 seconds clear of Jochen Siegert. As he heads on through and through the kink and down towards Canada Corner as well. In front of him there that is Jamie Dorey, who he's staying with, albeit Jamie Dorey has recently found his way past Paul Williams, the LMDH Silver driver, not really trying to put up too much of a buffer of resistance versus the LMDH Gold driver. So of course they only score points in their respective class, they don't score points overall, and Williams right now doing everything right with regards to running this race to its full potential. But meanwhile, as we look from them to a little bit further down the order, we look to Gavin Gone, and one of the drivers who had a bit of a sore start, and the Runner Motorsport driver here tucked in behind Stimmen as they made the way into turn 1. It's going to be the battle of the GT3 Gold driver versus the GT3 Bronze leader as they come through turn 1. We ride on with the gearbox here of the Rossum's Universal Robots drivers. He goes a little bit wide there out of 1. That's going to cost him some traction down towards 3. But you can see with the short run there towards turn 3, Logano having to back off. And now look who's coming up behind. That's Baz Meacham, who's in the second of the pair of them as they make the way down towards turn 5. And in the charge here, well, this is how strong the Mercedes is on the acceleration. You can see that gap open up. The Ferrari now starting to gain as the slipstream takes hold, plus also the Ferrari gets to top gear, but in return the Mercedes, the Russell's Universal Robots Mercedes, pounding down the tarmac. They're absolutely charging on through, and I think right now Vorgon has got to get the run through the next sequence of corners. So turn 6 through to his turn at number 10. If he can get a really good exit out of 10 and be within this distance all the way, then he'll have the run down towards Candle Corner at 12. But I think he's going to be upset here in terms of his momentum as Jamie Dorey looks down the outside of the pair of them. Still there, however, being impacted more than most. He has to hold an inside line through turn number 8, and as they come down to the carousel, Stimon now will be under threat here with regards to the fact that Garner will try and pick his way in front. I think Stimon doesn't want to lose any time here, so he's got to make a decision. Does he let this go, or does he hold track position? As you can see there, Paul Williams creeping on through before they get to the King, using the speed of the MDH as they make the way through the right-hander. Well, Garner's within 2.5 tenths, but has he got enough here in the run to Candle Corner? I don't think so this time. It's 2 attempts as they get halfway down the straight, and that's towards the braking zone now. It's not enough, and Gardner will just back out and do some more fuel saving here. Now, of course, the change for Gavin Gardner is P6 on the GT3 Gold class. His next target, with 5 seconds up the road, is Ole Martin Buick, and as he makes his way through turn 13, taking a bit of excess apex curve there at 13, you can see how the car started to slide slightly, but he called it nicely. He's got to be careful of that when the tyre wear starts to accumulate, particularly once these tyres have gone for about 50 minutes of race cycle progress. He'll start to find those left side tyres just do not offer any grip anymore in terms of the relative grip, such as where we're racing earlier on right now, and therefore he will need to be a little bit more careful and aware of the sensitivity of the tyre compound. As he makes his way down towards turn number 1 here, onto the brakes once more, and just focusing on running behind the Mercedes at the moment. He may be happy with his pace. He'll be the one who can gauge that in terms of whether he's happy to be here. But my gut feeling tells me the Ronner Motorsport driver is definitely trying to tee up a move here. I think he feels as though he's got about another tenth or two of pace, and he's just not being able to deploy it, being stuck behind the Mercedes. But of course, every time he's looking good and closer a move, he then has to deal with an LMDH picking their way on through it, and that one was of course Jochen Siegert making his way on through in the LMDH Silver class and P2 of the second class, but they come down to turn 5 and no change this time. But as they make the way on through, the field has opened up quite a bit, breeze over the course of this opening 30 minutes, and therefore it will go a little bit quiet at the moment, but we are waiting for these strategies to start to overlay, and also for drivers who are displaced with the instance on the open lap to potentially start to find their way back into their fighting positions, albeit of course with it being the 2-hour race, we've got plenty of time for that to unfold, compared to say our 20-minute sprints. We just do not have that time by comparison. But Meacham meanwhile staying close here as he makes his way out to turn number 8 into 9. The change for the BMW, as you can see there, well, it's Stimon goes a little bit deep on the outside as they come through the carousel. That's Garner who's going to come on through, and with Meacham as well. And Baz Meacham, they're playing the patience game, and Garner finally being rewarded for his persistence as they come on through the kick, and down towards Candle Corner they go once more. But roaring on through here right now, I don't think Daniel Stimon will be too bothered by that, given the fact he's still got plenty of time to go, and he still does have an 8.5 second advantage over Jordan Bavois. Right now is lapping a bit faster than him, approximately half a second a lap faster, albeit I think Stimon will be grateful for the fact now he can use his peers in front of him in order to receive some tow down the straights. As we look from them to the LMDHs here, we see Craig Jones tucked in behind what is there. In fact, that is, I do believe, Kevin Stringer. He's tucked in behind him. He looks up the inside going into the King. Both drivers survive it there. Stringer has a little wobble on the exit curving, and as they make the way down towards turn number 12, where it does look as though they're Stringer on the offensive, really trying to get back into this race. And in fact, we can see how Nigel Stock a bit further up the road here, will rolling on through and holding position well. But meanwhile, for Mark Sykes, this is where it's going to become push come shove in terms of he's got to push on now because he's not too far ahead. Where's Kevin Stringer? The gap between them is only 1.5 seconds. There's Stringer at the very bottom of your camera, and as the camera will spin around, this will give you a sense of perspective as Sykes out on the racing line on the outside lets the LMDHs go through, and that is Jones and Yonland making their way up towards turn number 1 in the battle for P4 in the LMDH Gold class. As Yonland looks in the move, he can't quite find it, but where's Kevin Stringer? There he is. The SCCR Simsports driver definitely trying to look to bounce, as meanwhile we look back to Jones versus Yonland, and Jones right now being boxed in a little bit with regards to the way the traffic has come thankfully for him, given the width of the road surface around Road America, it's only really too wide at the best of times. Well, that has meant for Jones he's been given an opportunity, but meanwhile an opportunity arises for Stringer, who looks up the inside here in the run down towards turn 5. Sykes on the outside, they battle their way into left-hander, and as they break the one through, Sykes has not got a response, and Stringer regains P2 in the LMP2 class as they make their way into turn number 6 once more. And right now Kevin Stringer is the man to beat in class in terms of pace as he tries to press on. Meanwhile, looking back to Jones versus Jonen here as they make the way through turn number 8, and right now Jones has broken away from Jonen for a brief moment, but I wonder how long it'll be before potentially the two of them come back together as we see a new fastest lap in the GT3 Gold class there at 2:04.435, and your time tower being set by Eric Benson, the GT3 Gold leader, and the pace continues to grow as the fuel starts to wear out of the cars. We have quite a few pit stops ongoing in the LMDH cars for both our Gold and Silver drivers. You can see there in our top 3 listings with regards to the LMDH Silver, we've got the race leader Paul Williams and Jochen Siegert into the pits, and therefore now we are seeing that prospect of where's at least a 2 stop for the LMDHs starting to materialise, given the fact we are only 32 minutes into the 120 minutes or the 2 hours, depending on your preference. But as our drivers make the way on around, we do look to Gavin Gardner here, who's trying to pick his way past Jack Barker, and also Ben Bennyworth, the GT3 Gold driver, at the inside. It's getting it very tight, but he finds it there as Barker looks to turn in, but in the end decides against it, given the fact that Gardner right now really trying to make some ground. Kevin Stringer meanwhile into the pit lane from what's P2 in the LMP2 class, so all that ground he's gained, he's got to gain against an extra pit stop he's had to make. As meanwhile we say hello in the Twitch chat there to Lord Gambos. Hope you're doing well, Mr. Gambos, as we do see Gavin Gardner continue to try and pick his way up through the GT3 field in general. His next target, Ben Bennyworth, he's up the inside here into turn number 5. Bennyworth there takes a look to turn in, but in the end Gardner makes sure to give himself all the room on the run to turn 5 and says that this is my place, I'm coming through, thank you. But right now Gavin Gardner's next class target will be Ole Martin Mjuk, as we do see here the team at slow-mo driver in the 337 car, who is behind the GT3 Silver leader of Espresso Rien, and the two team slow-mo drivers just running together here. No real complaint between the two of them. Mjuk right now doing everything in his power just to run his pace, but Gardner is very quickly approaching. Last lap, Gardner took a whole half a second out of the Norwegian, and he is continuing to take that pace out from corner to corner. But as they make the way into the kink once more, we look back to Gardner here, and that gives you a sense of the relative delta between the two of them. Meanwhile, Ben Bennyworth here in the GT3 Silver class, after getting clear of Jack Barker, he's not really broken away, and in fact it's a poor run through the kink here. Barker's going to look up the inside. Behind him you can see that's Jones in the LMDH Gold machine coming on through, but Barker up the inside gets it into Canada corner, and that could be an important move with the fact they've got Baz Meacham coming through, but Jones here to play the patience game as he separates the two GT3 Silver drives, and he looks down the outside here. If Barker just stays on the inside, this is going to cost him all the speed he needs as they make the way to the start finish straight. But will Ben Bennyworth worry about it at all as they make their way on towards turn number 1? Well, I don't think so. I don't think Bennyworth's close enough to really fight this, as meanwhile Baz Meacham has got Daniel Stimon behind him there, the GT3 Bronze leader, who's trying to come back versus the GT3 Silver drive. But Stimon immediately, you can see that he's lifted off because he was so close, and then he just simply, I think, raised his foot off the throttle to about 75% and decided, I do not need this place, I just need to save fuel, given the fact that right now Jordan Bay White is not closing up to Stimon. He's falling backwards by a couple of attempts a lap, so he is becoming a huge amount of strategy in the GT3 class in particular. We've got a number of GTV drivers here who are either making ground or refusing to make ground because they feel safe versus their peers, and instead of trying to make strategic progress with regards to doing fuel saving. And this is going to set us up for the very end of the race in terms of who's going to come out where from that final pit stop. Meanwhile, looking back here to Ingvar Almkov, we can see he's still chasing down with Ryan Walker, as Ryan Walker holds on to the place in front, albeit that is in the overall position of P27. Almklov meanwhile in P28, and these two in different GT3 classes. Walker Gold, meanwhile Almklov in the Bronze class, but Ryan Walker definitely having a difficult race so far and continues to try and make some degree of progress here as both drivers make their way down towards turn number 5, but definitely it has been a relentless circuit. Speaking of relentless here, well, Ben Bennyworth now under relentless pressure from Baz Meacham as they make their way through the carousel as we ride on board the gearbox here of the Porsche 911 GT3R. They come out to turn 10, but Bennyworth's gone a little bit deep here off a corner apex. That's going to cost him the run as he comes on through. Into the kink they go. It's going to be too wide as they make their way through the right-hander, but Meacham here backs out slightly. He decides he doesn't want to commit yet Meanwhile, look behind and you're going to see that's Mark Sykes in the LMP2. He can't find a way on through. He's going to have to wait. Also, Paul Williams in the LMDH Silver comes on through. It's going to be the prototype car tucked in behind. And in the MBH of season coming, he decides to back off. I think that's very sensible there, given the potential threat of a freeway moment into turn 12. But you can see the multi-class racing now stacking up over the top of one another as they come on through 13 to 14. And we'll credit to Paul Williams, the patience is being rewarded, given the fact he's not taking a scratch to the car. And the same for Sykes as well. But Bennyworth there being bought some space to play with, thanks to the LMDH and the LMP2 cars that have just queued up and played their turn. And Baz Meacham decided to play it as safely as possible. That could have gone very differently, but I do not think it's long before Baz Meacham will be back on the offensive again. The privateer right now, when he's definitely looking very menacing at this point in the race, with time continuing to trickle down, albeit we're only half an hour in effective. We've still got just under 90 minutes to go, but Meacham is showing no signs of slowing down. And when he passes Bennyworth, he's only got Jack Barker a further 1.2 seconds up the road to worry about. As they make the way over the turn 3 apex again. Will Meacham there being compromised slightly by Jochen Siegert coming on through, but it's still a drag race here, and the BMW driver will get the distant toe of a Barker as they head down towards turn number 5. Bennyworth there defends on the inside, but you can just see the overspeed of the BMW, and he just cannot fight it back as they make the way through turn number 5. To be fair, the Porsche's got so much potential on the brakes, but when Meacham's coming into the corner approximately 5 miles an hour faster in turn, when it shows, for the simple reason that the Welshman right now is just able to sail around the outside as they make the way into turn number 7 down towards 8. Now his next target will of course be Jack Parker, the mate for a racing driver here, who's kept it calm and consistent so far as they come through turn number 8. And I think for him, he's going to have to make a decision very quickly. Does he want to fight this, or does he decide to let it go? And instead, after gaining the ground on Bennyworth, set his sights on that P3 in the GT3 Silver class at this point in time. Of course, he's the only one who can tell with regards to the way he positions the car as they all make the way up towards the kink. And that is Benjamin McCluskey getting ready to come on in, albeit McCluskey decides to back off initially as they come through the kink and then go all in on the throttle now, given the fact they have a lot more space to play with as they make their way down towards turn number 12. But as they come on down, meanwhile looking a bit further up the road, we have a bit of an instant there, it would seem, between Wes Espresso Rien and only Martin Muir, because the two Team Slow-Mo drivers have said hello to one another. And well, whilst they're saying hello to one another on circuit, we say hello there to Stiganator South Africa in the YouTube chat. Hope you're doing well, Stiganator, as we continue to watch Espresso Rien here leading the GT3 Silver class. But I think he'll be mindful of hearing on the radio that Baz Meacham is closing fast as Jack Barker's into the pits. He's decided he doesn't want to play with Meacham or Bennyworth on circuit. He's going to play the strategy card here and reveal his hand, which is the undercut versus his peers. I think this is a smart move, and it's going to give him a lot more room to play with as the race goes on, albeit he'll be out of sequence. But being out of sequence now means he's got to push hard on his outlaps. But it's Gavin Gardner here, meanwhile in GT3 Gold at P6, tries to hold off with Espresso Rien behind. His next target is only Martin Muir. The driver just found his way past the GT3 Silver leader, and well, as they battle the way for GT3 Gold P5, the challenge for Gardner now is he just simply needs to close up once more. But he's got the time to play with here as he got the strategy with it as he heads on down towards turn number 5. Now keep in mind, Gardner has already made one pit stop, so therefore he is significantly out of sequence compared to his peers, and he may have to take an extra pit stop given the early nature of that first pit stop. But we will have to wait and see how he can potentially adapt the strategy. And that's the thing, of course, as well, when you do have to take a very early pit stop in the race, whether it be a fault of your own volition or alternatively another instant, that means you suddenly have to really think about, right, can I potentially not have to take that as an extra pit stop? Can I somehow make it part of my strategy sequence? But with that, and normally means you have to compromise on something, where it means you have to do an extremely long stint with regards to fuel or tyres or somewhere in between, and therefore you can't necessarily run at your optimum pace or your desired pace in the race. But Gardner right now definitely running at maximum attack as he makes his way into the kink and continues to chase after the Ferrari in front of him. As they head on down, we talked a lot about GT3s, what about our LMDHs? Well, here is your class leader with all of our LMDHs having made one pit stop on their schedule already, and your leader is Gaz Williams, NXTGEN Racing Purple, in control of this race at the moment. In fact, we did have a major incident, I do believe, for what was Raffaele De Santis, which has cost him very dear. We will try to find out what exactly happened to Raffaele De Santis, because he was leading the class for a significant period of time, but it does seem to have gone very, very wrong at some point or the other, as we do try and take a look back very shortly as to what happened to him, but we haven't got any information with regards to that at the moment, other than that he is 1 minute down on the rest of his peers. And then again, it could be a tyre change early on for all we know. We don't quite have that information available to us, but what information we do have available is that right now Gaz Williams leading the class by a margin of 13.3 seconds over Craig Jones at SCCR Simsports, number 88 driver here, trying to press on and trying to gain a bit more time in this race. He's got the pace to do so, to be fair. He is matching the lead in pace, and Jones showing no signs of abating when it comes to pushing hard. But he's got a long way to go, as is everybody, and therefore time will tell where he fits into the grand scheme of things as he makes his way into Canada Corner. We're coming on through and down to the next sequence of corners. We do look from here back to Gavin Gardner here, your GT3 Gold P6 driver, as the Rhino Motorsport driver charges after what is there only Martin Bjork once more. And as we jump on board here with the Ferrari driver, this will give you a sense of perspective of how he's having to really adjust his lines in that dirty air of the Ferrari in front of him. Now, of course, we talked about dirty air over the course of this season, and every circuit has played its part with regards to changing the lines our drivers use through the corners. But in terms of what our GT3 drivers really feel here at Road America, they'll feel, particularly with the carousel, the car will want to understeer a little bit more natural and turn into 9, and coming through turn number 10, they can't quite carry as much corner speed to the corner apex as we mince our words. But then, as they make their way up through the kink of 11, they can go flat out through here. Well, but you can see they're right on the edge. If they don't turn it in time, then it will be a lift and shift. But as they make their way down towards turn number 12, full speed here, and Gardner, of course, going up into top gear, saving himself some fuel when he could stay in 5th. As he comes on through, only Martin Muir, they're going a little bit deep, so Gardner is closing, and the pressure is building versus the Ferrari driver in front. And these tyres have done 42 minutes of race, and they will start to feel that pain when it comes to tyre wear and performance on the lap. We've got a lot of corners here which really do attack those left side tyres we talked about earlier, and New York now is really feeding that as they make their way onwards towards the next lap. Now, of course, the gap coming out of turn 14, 4 attempts as they head towards turn number 1, getting ready to battle on the brakes as they come past the pit lane. Stefan Vessels, Fredrik Stensvold-Duray and Jochen Essen all in the pit lane from higher positions in the GT3 Gold class. But right now Gardner up into P3, but he's got a way to go as they make the way down, and coming down towards turn number 3 through the kink of 2. We just needs to nail this corner. He's going to have a run to turn 5 as he comes off the quarter apex here, and Bjork also gets a good run as well. It's a gap of 3 attempts. It's closing fast. However, Gardner's giving it all she's got as they make the way down towards turn 5 using the full RPM band here. Bjork's going to hold to the outside. Gardner thinks about it. This is going to be an important move of position as he looks up the inside. Under braking he goes, and only Martin Muir not fighting it too hard in the end. But Gavin Gardner up the inside there, gain another critical position. I think Ole Martin Muir, he's focusing on just simply running to a predefined strategy in place right now and looking to bring it back later on. But meanwhile, I can see a number of you there in the YouTube chat cheering on Stefan Vessels. Indeed, the South African driver, very popular, racing for Racing Team Astra. And we see him come out the pit lane ahead of Fredrik Stensvold-Duray and also Jochen Essen as he makes his way down towards turn number 5. And we say hello to Elwin Elbit 80 Sykes there in the YouTube chat. And hope you're doing well, Elwin. It's good to see you as always. But as we see Vessels making his way through turn number 6, has led a good race so far, albeit and recently taken a pit stop, a bit out of sequence compared to likes of Eric Benson, Gavin Gardner, Ole Martin Muir. Keep in mind that Gavin Gardner has already made one stop that was very early on in the race. And speaking of your GT3 Gold Class leader, here is Eric Benson making his way down the pit lane. Well, this will be an important stop for him. And now where is Gavin Gardner and Ole Martin Muir? Well, they're coming out to Canada Corner. So really, Stefan Vessels is the danger man versus the Team Slow-Mo driver as Benson parks up, and Vessels right now is at the kink of what is turn number 11 as we look back to him here coming on through. And for the Racing Team Astra driver, it's all about attacking on that pace. But Benson has been very fast over the last few laps, and Vessels has also been matching. In fact, it's been faster by comparison as both drivers continue to charge here. I think it is coming between the two of them as it is an undercut that Vessels is trying to go for as he makes his way up through 13. Well, the fastest lap of the GT3 Gold class has gone to Vessels in the 2:03.96. A few laps before he came into the pits. He makes his way through 14. Benson is leaving the pit lane, however. How close will it be between the two of them? You can see that on the circuit map in the top right corner. Well, we do have the marker there of what is Benson making his way out of the pit lane, that gold 1. meanwhile, where is Vessels in all of this? Here he is, Stefan Vessels, as he's a bit further behind, but he's not too far off, and he's continuing to gain ground here. The gap now standing at what is 4 seconds, if not a little bit less, as he comes through turn number 1, and the Racing Team Astra driver is continuing to charge after Eric Benson. To put them in perspective, that's where they both are, making their way respectively out of and into turn number 3 in the same camera shot for a brief moment. And Benson right now, no, the enormity of the task facing him has just increased significantly in terms of that. He's got building pressure coming from behind as he makes his way past the GT3 bronze driver Jorge Santos there, who in a wounded Audi is continuing to soldier on despite the damage on the car. It's been a difficult one for the privateer, but as he makes his way up towards turn number 6, of course for him it's all about staying in the race, and you never know what can happen come the very end of it. Meanwhile, we look here to Baz Meacham, and well, Baz Meacham, after a pit stop, has jumped ahead of Jack Barker based on going for the overcut versus the undercut of Barker, and Jack Barker trying to come back at him now as they make their way down towards turn number 3. So the battles in the GT3 classes continue to rage on, and Barker is staying close. He makes his way out of the right-hander. You can see that Meacham getting a much better run off the corner, and this is where the BMW just has enough to be able to stay clear of the Audi. The Audi very fast in acceleration, but with Meacham getting such a solid run off the corner, you see it's only when we're about halfway down the straight that Barker is trying to close up and gaining in that toe as they make their way out of turn number 5. Now going through the left and up the hill into 6. I think this will go to the second round of pit stops between these two, presuming there will be a second stop available. But as they roll out the left into the right, both drivers here, I think, pressing on their respective goals, and also both wary of the fact that up the road you can see him there in the distance, that little speck in the distance making its way into turn number 8 right now. That is the GT3 Silver leader of Espresso Rien. So right now this is a battle for the lead of the class going on between all 3 drivers inside the top 3, and Stefan Albanese, who's had to recover his way all the way from the back of the field, is in P4, only 4.5 seconds behind. So it is all coming together in the GT3 Silver class. We've got a top 4 fight on our hands here, ladies and gentlemen, and it is for the lead of the class between our top 4 as they make their way onwards towards Canada Corner very shortly. And at the front of this field, Espresso Rien right now will be feeling a lot of pressure. He's had quite a peaceful opening 45 minutes, but now that piece has been shattered, and it's going to be a big question very shortly. Does he go for all-out war here in terms of defending, or does he decide to let things go as he makes his way through turn 13 up towards 14? Well, the slow-mo driver can be the only one to decide here, but if things are going to feel like they're going in slow motion, very shortly they're going to feel as though it's absolutely stopped in terms of time, because that clock will start to look very menacing in terms of how much time he's got left, and the fact he's got a lot of pressure coming up from behind. As they make their way across the timeline here, down towards turn number 1. Rien on the outside here, Meacham looking up the inside immediately. It's Ferrari versus BMW, it's the Italian stallion versus the German machinery, and as they get ready to bat on the brakes, well, now Meacham's going to look up the inside, goes all in on the anchors. Rien turns in, but he can't come into the corner apex in time, and Baz Meacham takes the lead of the class. Compromise there, Jack Barker's going to do the same now, coming down through 2 into 3. It's going to be a 2-for-1 special, and as they make their way through 3, Barker up the inside, another move much like with Bennyworth earlier on, and he gets it done, and Baz Meacham is now your class leader. Meanwhile, Jack Barker's taken P2, but can he hold on to it as he defends in the run down through 3-8 into 4, and shortly into the braking zone for 5. But you can see already Rien is getting ahead on the nose as they get ready to head down into the left-hander, but Barker defends it hard here, and as they come on through, he needs to Barker an apex and make sure that Rien can't get the short round back. He does so successfully, and with Magna Yolland closing up behind them, well, the team slow-mo LMDH driver will look to suspend his run through past the GT3s until he feels so Rien does not have an opportunity, given the fact they're both racing for the same outfit. But Barker gets on through it, and Baz Meacham moves into the lead of the GT3 Silver class here, and right now I think the sky's the limit when it comes to how far can Baz Meacham push this race and the lead here, because he just looks absolutely unstoppable with regards to the speed he's demonstrating. But meanwhile, as we look from what is our GT3 Silver leader to our LMDH Silver leader, here is Paul Williams with an advantage of 3 seconds currently over Jochen Siegert. We can see in the rear of the picture there, Jochen Siegert closing up little by little. And at this point in the race, he is lapping a couple of tenths faster than his teammate and the class leader. And I think we are seeing once again that mix up in strategy, and also the battery saving between our hybrid drivers. And Siegert there tries to give himself as much room into turn 3, with Stefan Vessels being passed in the GT3 Gold class, and Vessels is continuing on his way to chase down Eric Benson. Only sits 3 seconds up the road. You can see both of them there in the camera shot, as we see the LMDH Silver leaders making their way on down the second straight, and also the same there for the GT3 Gold leaders as they head into turn number 5. But as they come on through, we say hello there to Sean Scooter and Davide Favo. It's good to see that the racing team, Astra Group, all in the YouTube chat. But I do have to ask the question, why aren't all you guys out of the circuit right now? But either way, I hope you're all doing well. And as we do see Espresso Rian here, continues to chase after Barker in the GT3 at Silver battle for P2. Well, he's close, but is he now going to play this on strategy, or does he decide to come back, given the fact we see them making their way down the hill? But look at this man closing up. DRS eSports, Stefan Albanese, the Italian here, doing everything he can to close up as much as possible. But there's a mistake from Jack Barker, and he's gone round. He's caught it in time, but the mate for racing driver there steps a toe out of line, and in return drops to P4. And hopefully that's not the sign of something worse to come. But right now that will knock his confidence after what has been a real gain over the course of this race. But Stefan Albanese now up into P3, and his relative pace is to match what is Baz Meacham currently. Well, you can imagine here the DRS eSport driver will fancy his chances at winning the GT3 Silver class today, as will Meacham, but he's got a long way to go yet, given the fact that now Meacham is clear air. He's going to be doing everything he can to break away from this hunt from behind. As they make the way on down and towards what is a turn number 8. We look from them to Frederic Stensvold-Duray as we see the team slow-mo driver here, P3 of the GT3 Gold class. Well, there he does have what is behind him at Johan Essen in P4 in the class, and with the two team slow-mo drivers here, both I think focusing on just running together and running strategy over pace right now as they come towards the end of their current lap. As they make the way up the hill very shortly. Come on, Nigel Stock into the pit lane from the lead of the LMP2 class for his second stop. So we are expecting potentially 3 stops for our LMP2s in particular, given that they do get through fuel rather rapidly, and also those tyres may be a consideration as well. But definitely looking as though here we've got a lot of stops still on the cards, and we're not even quite at an hour of this race complete as we get 52 minutes complete by the time that Stensvold-Duray gets his way down to turn at number 5. But with the time still remain, of course, we've got plenty to talk about when it comes to strategy. And speaking of plenty to talk about, here's Ingar Almklov chasing after with Eric Silverstone for the final spot on the podium of the GT3 Bronze class. Again, the two team slow-mo drivers here fighting for position. It does seem to be a recurring theme in the GT3 classes with regards to team slow-mo, occupying a good number of spots. In return, all given one of brilliant racing action across the 3 sister teams, if you will, i.e. the leftovers black and the basic team slow-mo outfits. But Ingar Almklov right now definitely trying to gain one up on Silverstone as they make the way down towards turn number 14. As they make their way out to the final corner. Meanwhile, in the pit lane, we don't have Jordan Baybois, but we do have Manus Flotum Bukeka. Meanwhile, Jordan Baybois, the Frenchman, the privateer, with the double win last time out Silverstone. Well, that early instant cost him very dear, and still trying to chase down GT3 Bronze leader of Daniel Stimon. As we see here right now, the number 64 Ferrari flying high, and in terms of relative pace, well, he's not quite on the pace at Stimon currently, but he's doing everything he can to try and close that pace down. He's got the time to play with still, to be fair, with the gap only being what is 12 seconds, but he can't really afford to let that gap continue to open up. He needs that gap to swing the other way as this race wears on, because he won't have too many more opportunities to keep stringing in clear laps given the distribution of the LMDH machines around circuit. It won't be long before individual laps are disrupted by an LMDH or an LMP2 are looking to come on through. But as he heads on through a turn at number 6, we look back to our second place GT3 Silver driver of Espresso Rian here, who's now got Stefan Albanese close behind as we ride on board the gearbox, coming out to the carousel and into the kink short. You can see Rian there going slightly offline initially, just to disrupt the overspeed that Albanese will get from the draft here coming through the kink and down to Canada corner. But the point is, even with that slight weave, the gap is coming down very quickly. He won't be in attacking distance into the braking zone this time. That gap coming down towards 3.5 tenths there, and as they made their way out of turn 12 and up towards 13, Rian's definitely got his work cut out for him now with Baz Meacham. Continue to open up that gap lap after lap by 3 to 4 tenths a lap, and now for the team slow-mo leftovers driver, he's got to keep looking behind him and worrying about what's to come rather than what lies ahead of him, for the simple reason I don't think he's got that rim room. But Albanese into the pit lane here, coming in for what will be his second stop of the day, and Rian is given an opportunity to sigh relief as he makes his way onwards to what for him into his 26th lap of the circuit under race conditions. But as they head down towards turn number 1, we can see our GT3 at podium at sitters right now in the silver class, all together in a single camera shot. But meanwhile, Ingar Almklov here, battling side by side with Eric Silverstone into turn number 14. Around the outside he goes, and Silverstone going a little bit deep there at 13, and Almklov getting the move done, as they do have their full Williams LMDH Silver driver making his way up the inside of the pair of them, and onwards towards turn number 1 he goes once again. But as they charge the way on down here, it does seem as though things are settling down a little bit overall, and particularly in the LMDH classes at the moment. We haven't really got any battles that are starting to pick up as we do look to your class leader in the LMDH Gold class of Gaz Williams, with now a 29-second advantage over Jamie Dorey, and Williams is just putting in the laps like clockwork, albeit he's not the fastest man out there on circuit in the class. That accolade would go to the pair of Raffaele De Santis on that last lap of 48.06. He's P3 in the LMDH Gold class, and then behind him is Craig Jones, with Craig Jones a further 10 seconds behind, who recently put in what was a 48.07. So the two drivers exchanging lap times with its stocks on the share market, but the key point is both drivers from DRS eSports and SCCR SimSport respectively, both pushing on at this point in the race after taking second stops. And they may just come back into this race when we do see Williams and Dorey take their respective second stops, given the fact that drivers are losing approximately a minute at a time in the pit lane, and that's just as a place mark there in terms of that pit time loss, but there's more or less of it depending on what they're doing in the pits in terms of fuel and tyres going on the car. But as Craig Jones here makes his way on through 7 down towards 8, clearing on past Magnus Fullerton Bikeka there and into the carousel he'll go shortly. His goal right now will be to continue to match De Santis' pace and get himself into that mix come the very end of this race, given the way the strategies will mesh back together. But meanwhile, looking from our LMDH, what is our LMDH Gold drivers to our LMDH Silver drivers, we do look to Jochen Siegert here, P2 in the LMDH Silver class, currently 4.4 seconds off the back of Paul Williams. We have had one retirement in this race, and it was the retirement of Callum Jenkins in the LMDH Silver class. But otherwise, everybody else who started this race out to our 34 drivers, we have 33 still in the race. But meanwhile, speaking of a bit of drama, Stefan Albanese in a major instant there, coming into what is, I do believe, the carousel. Now, what on earth has happened to the DRS eSport driver? I think there was an off track, and with it, something that's gone very, very wrong. So making his way on down towards turn number 8 here into the braking zone. I think he's going to go a little bit wide. Ollie Wayne comes on through, and Albanese tries to point the car in the right line, but he rejoins. You can see there with the left-hand side tyres returning to the tarmac first, they just pulled the car completely to the left on the steering, and Albanese avoiding the wall there, but the DRS eSport driver, that would put a huge dent with regards to the momentum he was building after that second pit stop. And I think right now, Baz Veach, Espresso Ryan and Jack Barker have all been given a huge amount of room to play with, given the fact that's going to cost Albanese approximately 10 seconds of race time, and therefore now as they take their pit stops, they'll be thinking Albanese's got to make it. If they're not aware of it, if they are aware of it, they'll know that Albanese has got a lot of time to make up before they make their second stops over the course of today. As he heads on down towards turn at number 1 once again, he'll be kicking himself for that mistake, but we're looking to bounce back as soon as possible. And we see here Raffaele De Santis, meanwhile, continuing his way on through, but you can see it just behind him as they make their way into the carousel, coming on past Ben Bennyworth there. Again, using the downforce available in the LMDH BMW in order to just simply carry the speed around the outside and cut the inside here of the Rossum Universe Robots GT3 bronze leader of what is Daniel Stimman there as they make their way down towards turn number 12, and as they get ready for the next braking zone. Well, now De Santis will have to back off slightly. There's not really any room here for Canada corner. He'll have to go on up the inside there of Barker, but the acceleration he's got, there's going to be no complaint as he heads on through 13. Heading on through to 14. Meanwhile, we do look from De Santis up to Gaz Williams, your LMDH Gold leader once more, picking his way up past there. Stefan Vessels, your P2 GT3 Gold driver, and this is the awkward part of the race as well in terms of where does the traffic hit you on the course of lap. And we have seen here at Road America, despite the width of the road surface and the good number of straights, there are also a number of corners where you really do not want to catch a slower class car for the simple reason it takes you off the race line if you're going to pass, but also you're stuck behind because there's not really any room to make the move. Then you lose a huge amount of time. And with the carousel, an example here where you have to take it offline and really rely on the grip and the downforce of the car to get the job done. And Williams does so quite appropriately as he heads on through the kick. It's coming up towards Canada corner. If you can't find a way through before Canada corner, you are going to lose about half a second to a second at a time, having to play the patience game before you exit the corner. De Santis here closing up to the back of your LMDH Silver leader is Paul Williams there. P3 overall is Paul Williams as well. So De Santis trying to gain an overall podium here as they make their way through turn number 7 into 8. And with the DRS eSport driver, he'll just wait for the opportunity to arise. If it is going to come, it'll be on the run down the back straight as we jump inside here the dearest eSports machine, and as he makes his way down for the camera, so you can see that Williams goes a little bit deep. De Santis being on a tighter line, and he gets a really nice run onto the power there out of 10. This is going to give him all the momentum he needs. They head into the King. They do have Gavin Gardner ahead of them, so it will become one wide coming out the King. Here's Gardner, stays over to the left. He doesn't impede, and as they make the way down with De Santis here, I think has decided to back off as they get ready for Canada corner. Simply lets the car roll into the corner by comparison. That does not try to internal threat him. And I think now you have to wait for the start for the straight to continue to ride on board. Coming into 13, and Williams gets it a bit wrong, and De Santis going to look for the move. The two come together. There's contact between the two of them, and Williams there takes to the grass with the car being knocked sideways, and with that has not gone well for either of them. And well, Paul Williams definitely there in a shunt, which I don't think he'll be too pleased about. And I think there it'll be a big question about in terms of who interpreted what with regards to Williams. With that knock off the road, now it's fallen back to Jochen Siegert as the Speed 9 eSports driver. Now it's his teammate putting pressure on as they make their way down towards turn number 1. His race has taken a turn for the worst as they come through the right-hander, and also what damage has he got on the right-hand side of that car, which is going to cost him coming on through where's the left-hand corners. Coming on through the right-hander at turn number 3. Car goes a little bit deep, and I think it's an impact there over the course of every corner, not just the left-hander, as he makes his way down towards turn number 5. And Williams definitely struggling now as they head up towards the next braking zone. You can see there Aaron Racy just moving aside, deciding to get very clear. There is the GT3 Gold driver as they head down to 5. No change at the moment. Williams holding off. You can see it there, and I think Siegert trying to work with his teammate here, not to put him under any excess pressure, given the fact the two of them came together for that brief moment. It could have been much worse there in terms of both drivers could have gone off circuit and into the wall together, but for Paul Williams the outcome was not great, it must be said. And now it's all about seeing what damage is on the car and how far can he take it before he does need to get into the pits and use the fast repair to clear it off. As we see, you can see it, they're almost losing the rear end of the car coming out of turn number 8. So both drivers here struggling with particular woes of their own as the German makes his way down through 10 as he heads up towards the King. Still plenty of time on the clock. We have just under an hour to go now as we move into the second half of this race, and with plenty of time still to go, there's still plenty of drama on the cards, and also all the battles that come when the strategies align right at the end of the race. But as we do see the two making the way on through, we take a look back at what exactly happened in that run through what was turn at number 13. They made the way up the hill there. You can see both drivers getting Williams coming across there. I don't think he recognised that De Santis was going to make his way up the inside a little bit. We only caught it for a brief moment, but a bit of misinterpretation between the two drivers there. Well, that's a difficult one to call in terms of Williams coming across, but I think De Santis will feel as though he'd already got himself partially alongside, and well, the two of them there, they can agree and disagree, but at the same time, thankfully, I'm just a commentator, I'm not in the stewarding booth. That is going to be a very tricky one for our stewards to pick out, but meanwhile, we look back to the live pictures here and see it making his way down towards 3, back onto the brakes once more and staying in position. As he heads out to the right-hander, we look from our LMDH drivers up to what is our GT3 drivers, and we see Brian Walker here with an absolutely disastrous start to the day with that spin of what was turn number 8, costing him dear, and also in contact with another driver in the end, meaning they picked up even more damage than what he wanted coming out of that instant. And as they make the way out of 14 and up towards 1, where the next target now will be to pick his way past both Paul Scott and Jordan Baybois. And also keep in mind that Baybois right now P2 in the GT bronze class, so trying to make ground on Daniel Stimon, who is up the road from him, not by much. So right now for Walker, he's coming up behind two drivers who want to make progress and not regress in terms of their positioning in the field. And that's going to be an even bigger change for Walker in terms of he can't just expect them to move aside as they make their way down into 3. But Walker gets a nice run into the corner. Paul Scott does the same, but it's coming off the corner here where Walker will get the distant double draft of the Benoit, but also the immediate draft of the Scott. And this may just give him enough of an overspeed here. 2 tenths is the gap as they're halfway down the run into the Kink of 4. As they head downhill into turn 5, Walker looks up the inside. He's going to go from quite far back here. He sends the message early, and Paul Scott in the end respects it and lets it go. So Ryan Walker does pass one test, but now makes way up the hill. His next one, it will be Benoit, and of course will Benoit be as open to the prospect of just letting the G3 Gold driver through, given that he's trying to chase down Stimon in the lead for the G3 bronze class. As they make the way on down through turn 7 into 8, we can see there the LMDH Gold leader of Gaz Williams having to back off slightly as they make the way into turn number 8. And Meanwhile, Paul Scott staying behind at this moment as we see their mistake, and I believe that is Mark Sykes going around, coming out of turn number 8, just dipping the rear right tyre onto the grass and gravel, and the car going on around as he tried to get the power down. Next Gen Racing orange driver, they're trying to get the car back onto circuit, but having difficulty there, and it's a bit of a knock to the wall. That's going to take the whole rear wing off the car. Well, for Sykes, it's only going from good to bad to disastrous in very quick moments. Meanwhile, we look into Benoit, who's being passed by Ryan Walker, who goes around the outside to inside, coming for 11A, and as they come into Canada corner, well, they exchange the places, and Ryan Walker clears his two alternate class peers as they make their way into turn 13. As they come through, we're in the Jochen Siegert and Paul Williams both into the pits of the LMDH Silver class in terms of the leaders, and of course with Williams having that damage on the car, we can expect a bit of a switch up, and in fact there has been a switch up in the pit lane. Jochen Siegert comes out ahead of his teammate, albeit only by small margins, and as they run their way up to speed now down towards turn number 1. Meanwhile, got a couple of GT3 drivers coming through, then Siegert tucks in behind Stimon and Bennyworth as he makes his way out to one and through the Kinker 2. Williams, meanwhile, a little bit further back. They're trying to find his feet, and behind him is Gaz Williams, who is effectively a lap up now. Is the LMDH Gold leader over the LMDH Silver leaders as they head on down towards turn number 5. And as they come on through there, of course, the GT3 stay on the outside in the run, and meanwhile, the LMDH stay on the inside as they come down through the King of 4. They'll swap around in terms of their relative positions to the next apex, as Williams then now starts to close back up behind Jochen Siegert, and in return, Siegert their hands deal with Barku's on the racing line. They're coming up towards turn 6, but Williams backing off completely there and letting the GT3 driver take the corner, not letting any pressure be put on him as they head in towards turn number 7. But as they come on down, meanwhile, we do look from them to what is Daniel Stimon here, of course, your GT3 bronze leader, and will tucked in behind Ben Bennyworth, and his advantage over Jordan Benoit continues to stand at 11 seconds or so. And speaking of Benoit here, we can see Paul Scott have recently got past, and well, the privateer right now definitely, I think, wanting Paul Scott to get a move on now that the place has been gained. It's almost to say, okay, you've got your position, now get out, hurry up, because I want to go racing again for my own position. I think Paul Scott is going to happily oblige as they make their way down for the carousel, but definitely a bit of finesse having to be put into the mix here with regards to our individual driver classes in the GT3s, all looking to try and press on in their own respective races. But coming on down the round here and up towards turn number 12, making the way on through. And one driver right now really having to try and make a recovery out of today is Team Slow-Mo's only Martin Muir, who was involved in an incident earlier on, and well, currently P8 in the GT3 Gold class. And I did have the opportunity to catch up with the Team Slow-Mo driver in the build-up to tonight, and it was quite interesting in terms of his faults here. Whereas, of course, we heard from Gaz Williams with regards to his confidence in the LMDH Gold class. Muir was saying to me that whilst he was excited for today's race, given the fact the start of the season hasn't gone as well as he thought it would, maybe tonight would be the night for a comeback for him, albeit a little bit scared about the track position as he found as though he thought as though he's going to really fast strides both in front and behind him. So he's been hoping the racing will go smooth, and he manages to survive and score some crucial points, which has been a difficult race for him so far in the 337 Ferrari, but still anything can happen until he gets that checkered flag. Indeed, for all the drivers, anything can happen, and now we'll be hoping that there's no more drama here, being the lap down the class leader at the moment of Eric Benson, but still a long way to go, there's no question about it. As they head on through and down towards Canada corner, well, his challenge right now is to keep it smooth, sweet and simple, as meanwhile we look up towards the pit lane here, and we can see Raffaele De Santis into the pits. Craig Jones recently came out to the pit lane. Gaz Williams meanwhile has come through to retake P2. Raffaele De Santis in, of course, for that third stop, given the fact he had to take an extra stop early on. But Gaz Williams here emerging and chasing after Craig Jones, but Craig Jones is now your leader in the LMDH Gold class, getting ahead based on strategy. And well, for Williams, it's all about hunting Jones down, given the fact we may have one more pit stop between the pair here, depending on how long they can make this final stint last. They'll need to make it go 52 minutes plus the final lap, so effectively what will be 54 minutes all added up together. Meanwhile, Jamie Dorey back into P3. He's only a small margin ahead of Raffaele De Santis, who sits 10 seconds behind. But the thing we do know about Raffaele De Santis in P4 is he is looking to be as fast as Craig Jones, the leader of the class, and De Santis has got a bit between his teeth in wanting to lead the LMDH Gold class in the remainder of the championship. But as they head on down the second straight here and up towards turn 5, the gap there not growing at the moment. In fact, starting to already stabilise and close back up a little bit as the Italian here looks to charge on what will be his full stint effectively. as he makes his way through a turn at number 5. Of course, credit to De Santis for the fact he's had one more pit stop compared to his peers, but he has technically got himself back into that podium hunt, albeit he's a way off. He's hunting for the P3 at the moment, but if any mistakes are made from Jones or Williams and they fall back towards Dorey, you can imagine that De Santis will look to be there as well, albeit he's got to bring down a 10-second gap as part of that mixture. But as we look back up to the leaders here, Jones right now doing everything right as he heads on down towards the next corner. As we do take a quick sip of water there, the key thing for Craig Jones at this point, of course, is he's done everything right on strategy, but now can he do everything right in terms of just nailing every corner from his own personal driving perspective, but also manage the traffic he sees upcoming effectively, so avoid catching that traffic at the most inconvenient moments and instead focus on catching it when it's the right time to do so. It does sound a little bit hard as a driver, but there are ways you can do it. If you know you are coming up behind the GT3 driver and you're coming up to a very technical or tight section in the near future, sometimes what you can try to do is just do a little bit of lift and coast in the corners beforehand. The idea being you slow the rate at which you catch up to that driver essentially, but then you can clear them at the better point on the circuit. Of course, it does cost you race time, but it may cost you a little bit less compared to if you catch the GT3 driver right now. As you can see here, closing up to Peter in the bronze class in the GT3s, Jordan Beauvoir, and as he makes his way down towards a turn at number 8, he's timed this quite well. He'll be on the inside, but he will cut it into the centre of the road and just give himself a little bit more width to the corner, so it doesn't cost him as much. Gaz Williams, meanwhile, will catch up to the same GT3 driver on the run, out of the carousel and into the King. So it will be advantage to the Next Gen Racing purple driver for the simple reason he is caught up to the GT3 at the better place. You can see there just no impact, makes way at the inside, got all the room to return to the racing line, and it just carries all the speed for return over. It's those little intricacies that are the key items here. As meanwhile, Paul Williams versus Jochen Siegert, they're side by side. They make the way down towards turns 4 and 5. Henry through the kink of 4. Williams gets ahead there. He has to find a bit of space. Jochen Siegert close behind, and then Williams gets it done, but he goes a bit deep. Jochen Siegert tries to come back. It's going to be the run up here into turn 6, but Williams there holds the centre of the road. Siegert looks on the inside. It's going to be a very tight apex. Williams gives it the space. They come out 6 into 7. Defending hard here, and Siegert continues to try and make it too wide. But in the end, there's only enough room for one. And in the end, Paul Williams gets ahead as they make the way into turn number 8 once more. But Williams now definitely have to fight back on through. Jochen Siegert continues to keep him honest here. Of course, two teammates won't want to take one off of the circuit, but at the same time, they'll both have a little bit of personal pride on their side with regards to wanting to show themselves as the lead driver as they make the way into the kink once again. But as they come rolling on through with some time available and with things being a little bit quiet at the moment on the battlefront, let's take you through of the story of each class so far and what to expect in the remainder of this race. So we look to the front of the field, and in the LMDH overall and the LMDH Gold classes, it is Craig Jones for SCCR Simsports who leads the way in the 88 car, albeit having to navigate his way in much GT3 traffic at the moment. His story has been he's been one of the fastest of the LMDH Gold drivers all round, and in the course of this race he's nailed it on strategy in both pit stops, and right now holds what is a 3.7 second advantage over P2 driver of Gaz Williams for Next Gen Racing Purple. The difference between the two of them is he hasn't quite had the pace necessarily match Jones, but he hasn't nailed the strategy as well, and we're wondering if Williams is saving it all up for the final stint in terms of going on the offensive. We believe that both drivers may have one more pit stop in them. Alternatively, they are trying to make this final stint last to the very end, but it's going to be very close. It'll be nip and tuck in terms of how far they can go. Then in P3 in the class, we do have Jamie Dorey, who are further, 27 seconds back. The Next Gen Racing orange driver here had a difficult start to his race, falling back quite significantly early on, but in return, as he makes his way down after 2 pit stops, he does have closing up to him. P4 driver here, Raffaele De Santis, who after an extra pit stop early on due to an incident, now finds himself on the offensive, trying to chase down that P3 to give himself an opportunity to be on the podium here, albeit he's out of sequence on the strategy, but it can't be denied. The pace he's showing, he has been showing very similar pace to Craig Jones, and with it the ability to really run the race distance at top end speed. But meanwhile, we do look from De Santis to P5 in the LMDH Gold class, and that is Magna Yonland here, who we can see a lap down the Team Slow-Mo black driver in an instant early on, cost him dear, a lot of damage on the car, an extra pit stop with it as well, as he comes out of the carousel ahead of Benjamin McCluskey by an advantage of what is 49 seconds, and just focusing right now on converting this P5 into his final finishing position, with Benjamin McCluskey, one of the leading pace drivers, of course, in the LMDH Gold class, just having a day of woe and misery when it comes to Road America and how it's treated him. as he heads on down towards turn number 5 once more. And in fact, speaking of a bit of a difficult moment, we take a look back, because I believe McCluskey just had an off track into turn 3. In fact, here as he made his way on through the right hand of the car, snapping in very aggressively. And, well, the car in the end just going all around for McCluskey. It just continues to become a more difficult day by the dozen of corners that he turns as he brings it back onto the circuit there. But definitely not the way he's wanted it to go, as he's been towed to the pits. There's been a further incident for McCluskey, and I think that knock to the front of the car has upset the car enough that he needs to be towed. But meanwhile, we go from our LMDH, what is our LMDH Gold drivers, to our LMDH Silver class. And we can see here Paul Williams leading the way, but he lost the lead for a brief moment after a bit of contact with Raffaele De Santis in the run out of turn 13 to 14 that saw him go off track, and with some damage in the end lose the lead to Jochen Siegert in the pit lane. But in return, Siegert in the end not able to withstand the charge of the Speed 9 eSports teammate, and Williams back into the lead of the class here by 2.1 seconds. But the two nip and tuck in terms of pace, but Williams does seem to have a slight edge over his teammate and closest rival, and you can see that 2-second gap here articulated in terms of the on-screen distance between the two of them there, as the German from Speed 9 eSports keeping up Williams honest. But there's a way to go, and we do expect that the two of them may have a trade-up on strategy right at the end. Meanwhile, in P3, only 3 cars left in the LMDH Silver class, all from Speed 9 eSports. Mark Baker here with an early instant cost him dear, puts him a whole, what is there, 1 minute and 10 seconds if not more behind his two teammates, but still in it to win it, as they say, and not retiring from this race as he carries on. And we have had the one retirement from Callum Jenkins, as you can see there, who has retired, and already the team have made the way away from the paddock. But then we come onto our LMP2s, and we can see Nigel Stock leading the way here in class by just over a minute from Kevin Stringer. An early instant for Kevin Stringer and Mark Sykes, giving Stock all the breathing room he needed it with regards to taking the lead this race, and since then he's never looked back as he makes his way up through turn 8 and into the carousel, coming on down. And meanwhile, by comparison, that Kevin Stringer here, who's had to make one extra stop of course to repair the damage he picked up at the start of the race, the CCR Simsports driver ahead of Mark Sykes, but knowing that wind's not coming today, and that will compromise it to some degree versus Stock in the championship and put them on an even more level footing. They're only 2 points apart going into tonight, but it may mean for the first time this season that we do see Nigel Stock leading the LMP2 class. But Stringer carrying on all the same here, and knowing that those points are going to be valuable and no points can be dropped in the class of 3, as he makes his way down for turn number 3 and onwards towards turns 4 and 5. And we do have Mark Sykes, who is in the pit lane here, and I do believe they have effectively retired the car, with the car having been there for over a minute now in the pit box and still no signs of it moving. But meanwhile, we then come onto our GT3s, and we start off with the GT3 Gold class here, and we can see that Eric Benson continues to lead the GT3 Gold class for Team Slow-Mo by an advantage there of 4.5 seconds over Stefan Vessels. And for Benson, ever since taking the lead of the class after some incidents that affected the GT3 Gold drivers, he's never looked back. But the thing is, he might start to look back slightly, because Stefan Vessels is doing everything he can on both of them on a one stop so far to try and keep him honest as the South African makes his way through turns 5 into 6. The difference between them, however, the Racing Team Astra driver has just not quite had enough lap in and lap out to match Benson. That gap has come down considerably, but every so often it does open up. There's also been some traffic considerations, but we do have a huge crowd of Racing Team Astra followers in the YouTube chat. It's good to see them all there, and of course they're cheering this man on. But right now it is coming down to a race of pace between the two, with Benson and Vessels both on the same strategy of the one stop so far, both pitting about the same time, and they are a long way clear of the head of the rest of their peers. P3 in class is Frederick Stensford Dorey, as we do see here the Norwegian making his way through the carousel, but Team Slow-Mo driver currently in a bit of a lonely P3, albeit 5 seconds clear of Johan Ersson, who we see there in the rear of the pitch, albeit that's only Martin Bjork. He's a bit further back, Ersson, and we'll see him very shortly coming out the corner. But there is the aforementioned P4 driver Team Slow-Mo. But these two have been running together on track for some time, albeit now Dorey has started to open the gap based on strategy and a little bit of a pace advantage, but Ersson continuing to just keep his head down and run the pace of this race, given the fact he's got Gavin Gardner, who is a further 22 seconds behind and completing the gold top 5. Speaking of the runner motorsport driver, an early instant cost him quite dear, but we do have to cut that fault for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, because Baz Meacham's off here at turn number 8. Now, how will this affect his race is the question, given the fact he's returned here, but as he makes his way back on, well, the privateer, he's been pulling a lot of ground over his peers. He's been pulling a whole second a lap, if not more, over Espresso Rin and Jack Barker. And I think for Meacham, whilst he's had that major off, it's not going to cost him too much time in the big perspective, but a major moment there for him. We get a replay immediately. as he's making his way down towards turn number 8. I think this is an unforced error. We've seen many a driver in the GT3s and indeed in the LMP2s as well come unstuck at turn 8, and turn 8 costing that, and the car sliding loose on entry, coming off the brake stand into the apex rather than on power and exit. Well, the Welshmen, they're just trying to carry a bit too much speed in the rotation phase and therefore getting it wrong on the car going around, but thankfully not a run to the wall, just a little bit of a wound there in terms of flat spot in the tyres. But as we return to the live pictures, we'll continue his story very shortly, but we'll stay with our GT3 Gold drivers. We've completed the top 5, and then P6 at the moment, the man who had a spin at turn 8 very early on this race, Ryan Walker, and with only one pit stop, a wounded car before his pit stop, making his way up towards turn number 1 once again. And P6 in class at the moment. He's got the pace to be leading in the race, but the challenge for him is he is a whole 1 minute and 21 seconds down on the class leader. And his target right now is to get it on home and pick up any potential places that come his way through attrition, where other drivers may make mistakes or retire before the very end. We then come to P7, the GT3 Gold class of Magnus Fluitenbjerg, and much like Ryan Walker, an instant or two has cost him very dear, and he does sit right now just shy of a lap down from what is the leader of the class as they make their way up the hill, albeit when I say it just shy of a lap down, that equates into what is approximately 20 seconds, given the fact he's 1 minute 53 off of that Benson. But as he makes his way across the timeline, Bjerg, the same as Walker, just doing everything he can in order to stay in this race and run his pace to the very end, albeit currently 2 stops versus what is 1 stop for his peers as he makes his way through turn at number 1. But he comes on down through to turn at number 3 very shortly. We also do have Ole Martin at Mjörk, as we see here the team slow-mo driver heading into the right hand of turn at number 14 to complete his current lap. He is a lap down in class at the moment, and a disaster early on in the race and a couple of incidents later on have cost him all the way in terms of his position. But 1 lap off at the moment, he's not giving up, and that's what it's all about as he keeps his head down and presses on here with 40 minutes remaining. And the last of our GT3 at Gold drives, we do have Davidson as of this round, Aaron at Rezi there as he makes his way into turn number 1. And well, it's been a difficult race for the privateer, there's been no question about it. After an early incident that saw him off circuit in the run to turn number 3 on the opening lap, since then he's had a couple of incidents, including the park up at Canada Corner at turn number 12, but he's never left the race. He's always stayed in it, and therefore in P9 currently 2 laps down, but still at the same time enjoying the run in the Mercedes. We then come on to the GT3 and Silver class here, and well, Baz mentioned we saw him with that spin only months ago, but still leading and still putting the laps in here with pit for a position. And as he crosses the timeline there, right now everything going Meacham's way. He's had to come from the back of the class, given the mistake and the contact between himself and it was Aaron Racey early on in the race. But since that contact, he's never looked back. He's on the one-stop strategy, much like his peers, and right now looking to ascend to victory with P2 in class Espresso Rien here, a 5.2 second delta behind and gradually falling away from the leader. But in return at Rien here, looking strong for P2 with Ben Beddyworth in P3. Only 1 stop to his name as well, and Beddyworth, after being passed by Rian, Meacham and Barker, seemed to fall off the pace a little bit, but also I think protecting the tyres on the Porsche 911, despite the fact we do have a tyre change at some point, trying to make those tyres go long, and perhaps it'll be a new set of boots on come the final stop as he makes his way down towards turn number 5. He's got Ryan Walker there, the GT3 Gold P6 driver looking up his, in fact P5 driver looking up his inside, with Gamagana recently pitting, and Beddyworth's going to let that one go and focus on racing his class. And as we tee our way down through the GT3 Silvers, Paul Scott in P4 here, making his way out of what is turn at number 3, and the Next Gen Racing orange driver has had a bit of a difficult race, had a couple of off-tracks quite recently that have cost him dear, but looking to try and fight for P5 in class as he heads down into turn at number 5, ahead of Ollie Wayne, who's in P5 at the moment, the Next Gen Racing purple, and the Mercedes driver with a mistake at turn 8, that cost him a lot of time early on in the race, but right now trying to battle with Paul Scott, albeit he is a margin of what is there, 16 seconds off. In fact, we do the maths, it is 16 seconds as he comes down into turn number 5, and the Britain right now there's a little bit of a tank slapper, a bit of an oversteer on the exit at turn 5, definitely feeling those rear tyres on the Mercedes starting not to offer him the grip he so craves as he heads through the remainder of this lap. And then we have Stefan Albanese, the man with the pace to win it in the GT3 Silver class. In fact, the fastest man in class by a considerable margin over the course of this race, but 2 early incidents plus a later incident of Cinderella's eSport driver dropped all the way back to P6, and effectively on 2 stops so far, definitely not his day today, but doing everything he can to get back into the fight as soon as he possibly can. And then we do have Jack Barker, who's recently pitted, but drops all the way back to P7, albeit with an extended pit stop, and I suspect a whole new set of tyres may have gone on the car, given the fact he was P3 only moments ago, and we'll have to wait to see he's effectively fighting for P2, P3 in class as he heads through at turn number 6. And a couple of wobbles have cost him P2, but at the same time he's definitely kept his head down, made some great moves as well, and that completes your run of the GT3 Silvers. And as we come on to the GT3 Bronze drivers, taking the lead of the GT3 Bronze class as we cut to him is Jordan Bevois as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. Now, of course, do keep in mind that he's been running in P2 for some time, approximately 11 seconds off a class leader of Daniel Stimon, and the difference between the two of them has been that Stimon has just simply had enough pace to keep that gap open no matter what the Frenchman's thrown at him. And right now, Bevois has got to do something magical and strategy here to try and find a way to bounce back, because otherwise, presumably he will pit soon, because he's only made one pit stop, and he's due for a second pit stop before the end of this race, as all of our GT3 drivers in terms of their schedule. Bevois will be battling for P2 at the end, with a P2 driver at the moment. Ingot Almklov is not too far back, and in fact Almklov is gradually starting to tighten the gap between himself and Bevois. The gap now down to 2.6 seconds, albeit the Team Slow-Mo leftovers drivers really had to work this gap down. He's had to grind it down over the last few laps. He runs a bit wide there at turn number 6 in the sunshine. He wants to make that mistake in a hurry, because of course the wider you go out there, the likelihood of you going round, the rear lifting up and going round becomes ever greater. They're definitely trying to push on here before his pit stop ahead of Eric Silverstone, who running in what is effectively P4 as well, to understand it when those second stops come in. He's also had a rather considerate race in terms of the fact he's not really been up there in terms of the top 3, but at the same time he has found a way to gap himself to the remainder of the GT3 Bronze field for Team Slow-Mo Black, and therefore has not really been in any of the drama as he makes his way down into the carousel. Daniel Stimon, meanwhile, your effective race lead on strategies, we're to understand it. The Czech driver from Rossum's Universal Robots, well, he's absolutely pulling the trigger on every single lap right now. They've been flawless laps from start to finish, and the 75 Mercedes is rising here to stay in terms of the lead of the race, we presume, based on the strategy. With then Jorge Santos, the last of your GT3 Bronze drivers here, P5 a lap down, an early incident and more damage to the car, as you can see on the front end of the privateer Audi. Definitely costing it some time, but Santos not giving up and staying in it all the way. But as he makes his way through turn 14, that's the field recaps. But as we look here to Gaz Williams making his way up towards turn at number 5, the LMDH Gold leader, we must look to Raffaele De Santis, and what is there, Jamie Dorey in the battle for P2 in the LMDH Gold class. In fact, they've recently had an exchange of position off camera, but thankfully we are able to bring you a replay of what exactly happened. Well, this was in the run into what we believe is turn number 14. As they came off the corner, Dorey there being compressed by being so close behind Jorge Santos. And as his own De Santis just simply picking his way on through. I think they're Dorey being caught out in terms of just being too close at the inappropriate time, coming out of turn 14. And De Santis there taking the place with both hands and saying thank you very much, sir, as they make the way on to the next lap. As we return to live pictures now, a couple of other battles to keep in mind, of course, beyond our drivers here battling for P2 in the LMDH Gold class, is we still do have that question of Williams versus Siegert in the LMDH Silver class, albeit that gap has opened up to 3.5 seconds in the favour of Williams. And we also do have the outstanding question of what is that battle of P2, P3 in the GT3 Silver class between the combination of Espresso Rien and also Jack Barker and also Ben Bennyworth in terms of how they thread together. But more pit stops on the cars. We can see there Mark Baker has just left the pit lane in the MDH Silver class, and as they continue their way on around here, we still just have over half an hour remaining. And we look to Ingot Almklov here, who continues to try and chase after Bevois as they make their way down towards turn number 12. Now jumping on board here with the Team Slow-Mo leftovers driver. He's been gaining at quite a rate of knots over the last couple of laps, but what are we to read into this? Now, Bevois, to be fair, both drivers in the Ferrari, so they both will be running identical machinery. There's been a fixed setup series, but at the same time, I wonder whether there's been a bit of a change with regards to the approach to the tyres. The Ferrari can be very aggressive on its tyres, particularly the rear tyres, they light up quite easy. But Almklov there, following Bevois, but Bevois into the pit, so he's decided he doesn't want to fight this position. He's going to go for the undercut here. Almklov meanwhile goes long. He's still got to take a pit stop at some point, given the fact we're expecting all our GT3 drivers to make 2 stops to the minimum as Almklov heads his way into turn number 1. definitely right now showing that pace is growing at the end of the race, but I wonder if Baywell was potentially saving fuel or just nursing the car before getting it into the pit lane, and he'll come on strong when he comes back out onto the circuit. Whereas we see here, Club making his way on through. Another driver into the pit lane from the lead of his class is Eric Benson from the lead of the GT3 Gold class for Team Slow-Mo, making his way on through. And meanwhile, whilst all that's going on, we've had an incident for Paul Scott, and we've had a further incident there. I believe that is Kevin Stringer who's into the wall. What on earth has happened there? Two drivers have come together, I think, at the King. We're not quite sure exactly what the story is, but we will find out very shortly if Stringer gets back up to speed. But the SCCR Silversports driver with the damage on the car, you can see they're just not able to go through the right-hander as comfortably, and I think having to tiptoe to the pits. We can take a look back at what happened to Paul Scott. And into the King they went. Paul Scott went round there. Well, that was under his own volition. The Stringer had to take evasive action and be connected there with the two of them coming together. And, well, for the Stringer, that was unfortunately the wrong place at the wrong time. And for Paul Scott, it's an error which he will not want to repeat in a hurry. As we take a look back from Kevin Stringer's perspective, how that all played out. So we ride on board here with Stringer. Now he comes through the corner. He won't see Scott lose until now as he makes one through, fully committed here, and tries to go around a small tap on the grass and just take it to the grass with 2 to 3 tyres. In the end, the car just rolling on through. Now, thankfully for him, no contact with the wall, no major knock to the wall. But for Stringer, that would definitely have put his heart through his chest, if not already doing so. Turns the speed of the race in action. But for Stringer, that was a nightmare moment as we return to the live pictures. Half an hour to go. He's come into the pits there, up on the jacks as well. So it's going to be a new set of tyres there, giving the slide along the back straight. But definitely a nasty moment for both Scott and Stringer, and one that's going to impact the races heavily. But meanwhile, as we look here to Ole and Martin Muir, making his way up past there, Daniel Stimon, and it's a change of overall position, not class position, for the GT3 Gold driver coming on through for what is P24 overall, ahead of the GT3 Bronze P3 driver. But of course, Stimon focusing on his strategy position, currently P3 in the bronze class. We do believe that will equate to the lead of the GT3 bronze class. And speaking of drivers coming on, and then we'll hear is Ingar Almklub into the pit lane, and we've also got Eric Silverstone in. But where is Stimon as he makes his way down into turn 14? Now coming on through, we would expect the Ross Universal Robots driver will have a very comfortable run coming out of the corner. Meanwhile, as he makes his way up the hill, I think we do have a bit of an interchange with regards to further strategy here in the GT3 Silver class. We'll tell you a little bit more about that very shortly. But Stimon comes on through, Almklub making his way along the pit lane exit. Meanwhile, where's Jordan Baywa in all of this? He's still making his way out of what is there, I believe, turn number 14. So Almklub is going to make the jump here, and Almklub jumps into P2 in the GT3 Bronze class. It's a nice bit of strategy, and he's given himself all the space on circuit to get himself up to speed and temperature and go hunting. Meanwhile, Baywa comes on through, and that goes to show you the delta. And coming out of the pits there is Eric Silverstone. So Silverstone's gained ground as well. So now for the Team Slow-Mo Black driver, can he go hunting after Baywa right at the end of this race? He's going to have about 15 seconds to play with in terms of closing it down, as Jorge Santos there just tucked in behind, a lap down respectively right now, so not really in the hunt for P4, but he would like to try and gain a lap back on Silverstone if he can. But I think his focus right now will be bringing it all the way to the end, as meanwhile we look from them to what's happened in the GT3 Silver class, and you can see that Baz Meacham making his way down through the carousel. And as he comes on through turns 9 and 10, well, he has an advantage of 2.4 seconds over Espresso Rien, but Rien has closed up on strategy, and that's an important thing to know here. He has gained a lot of time as they made their way onwards towards turn number 12, and can Rien come back at the BMW M4 driver right at the end of this race? Well, if he can, that would be a huge thing to keep in mind going into our future rounds. The fact that Meacham has looked absolutely unstoppable today when it comes to pace, but it's almost as if Espresso Rien has been tucking it all for the final stint of this race, given the mind, of course, with 2 pit stops and the fact they only really want to change the tyres once. And we've seen a lot of drivers decide, it would seem, to run tyres long and then go for that pace right towards the end of the race. Well, right now, Rien doing everything in his power to go on the offensive there versus Meacham. And there's the gap, 2.6 seconds. It is opening up little by little, but we'll have to wait to see how much oscillation is in that gap over the next couple of laps. Meanwhile, in P3, despite these trials and tribulations, Stefan Albanese here for DRS eSport, pressing on as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. Now, he has made 2 pit stops already. Are we expecting a potential 3rd stop given the way his race was played now? We'll have to wait to see whether he can make it all the way to the end. This is going to be a very long stint by comparison, And then meanwhile in P4, Ben Bennyworth here has come back out ahead of Jack Barker at a very long pit stop. I wonder if there was an error in the pits for the Made for Racing drive, because he was looking so strong in the run for what was a podium position, but now falling back to the bottom spot of the top 5. We're still 36 seconds off the lead, 14 seconds off of Bennyworth. I think he'll just be looking to bring the car home with P5 right now, and it'll still be an achievement, to be fair, given that we've seen so many drivers make mistakes, Barker included. I think anybody who makes the checker flag deserves a pat on the back by a minimum, as we see here the number 6 car making its way out of turn at number 3. But as he heads on down the second straight, we look back up to the LMDHs, and in particular the LMDH Silver leader of Paul Williams. And coming out the final corner, the gap between himself and Jochen Siegert now up to, what is there, a minute 20, as Jochen Siegert has already made his third and final stop for today. So Paul Williams carrying on, and I think here it's going to be a mix-up in strategy. Siegert going for the undercut, trying to give himself some more time on circuit for that final stint. Meanwhile, Paul Williams, by comparison, trying to make this penultimate stint go as long as possible, and then coming right towards the end of the race, so as close as possible to the end, and just give himself a short sprint to the finish line. But as he comes out of turn at number 3, both drivers here with different strategies. They will come back together given their respective pace. But meanwhile, looking to Stefan Albanese. On the inside there, Ryan Walker had a brief off track coming through the King, and I think some very worn tyres and some cars with tired arms and legs. Well, I think mistakes now will start to creep in for some drivers, as we see Albanese making his way on through for overall position versus Walker, and Walker staying with him there. I think Albanese will be hoping that Walker does not try and come back past him in the run to turn number 1 as they head up the hill. But will Walker have other plans here? Well, he feels like he's the faster driver as they head down towards 1. And I think Walker may play this smart, just simply tuck in, given the fact that right now for Walker, he's not really chasing down Garen Gardner, who is the best part of what is, based on a bit of mental mass, approximately 35 seconds up the road from him. I think Walker's also got to be cognizant of the fact that he does have Ole Martin and Muir behind him by only 7 seconds, and therefore the private team may have some pressure for that P5 position at the end of the race if things continue as they currently stand. As they head out of turn 3, no exchange of place between the two of them. As meanwhile we look to Kevin Stringer here, who right now, the LMP2 driver, has come out of the pits after what has been his 4th stop of the day. It's not been his day. He's there. We've got Benjamin McCluskey up his inside, and McCluskey has made 5 pit stops so far today. McCluskey really has visited the pits more than anybody else, but as they make the way through turn 13 into 14, both drivers here trying to recover what they can from a difficult day in the office. And for McCluskey, the next gen Racing Purple driver, is going to be at most a P6 in the LMDH Gold class if things were to finish as they currently stand. As they make the way down towards turn 1 into the pit lane is Paul Williams as he comes on in from the lead of the LMDH Silver class. And for him, where will this put him in relation to Jochen Siegert? We'll see it right now making his way to turn number 8. As you can see there on the circuit map, the number 2 pink coming on through there. That's the tracking, of course, for our LMDH Silver cars, and Williams parked up quite comfortably now. I think this will go his way given the relative gap between them. And Siegert also being quite compromised here as he's having to pick his way past GT3s, and they're coming past Ole Martin Muir on the run out of the carousel and not being given the outside run there. So Siegert has had to back off a little bit, and I think this is all going to add up to an extended advantage for Paul Williams. In fact, Williams is already leaving the pit lane at the moment. Siegert's not even at turn 12. He's only just arrived there, and for Williams coming out the pit lane so soon, that gap is definitely going to swing one way, and it is the way of Paul Williams. It's going to be a gap in excess of 24 seconds when he comes on around to go on to the next lap, and that is an absolutely huge advantage for Paul Williams now as he heads on to this final stint. But of course, with Paul Williams, it's not been with the tyre change per se, and therefore he's got to keep in mind those tyres will now need to go all the way to the end. But meanwhile, speaking of drivers, had a bit of difficulty. It's Stefan Albanese into the pit lane after we believe was a spin coming out of the last couple of corners on this lap. We take a look back. So going on through turn 14, it's literally the final corner. Car goes wide, bounces out there, and as he makes way on through, it's a grind along the wall, and he has to gradually bring the car back into the circuit and get it stopped there, as he had a number of cars trying to make the way on through. But thankfully for Stefan Albanese, only had to let one through before making his way to the pit lanes. I think he was planning to come on in, but in the end, Albanese having a little bit more of an eventful pit entry than perhaps he would have liked. He's made it on in, and with that he'll drop back to what will be outside the top 5 of the GT3 Silver class, with Ollie Wayne recently coming on through, and Jack Barker also coming on through. So therefore, Albanese now back to P6, and it has not been his day, as we also do have in the pit lane Paul Scott, as you can see there in the rear view picture. And I think for Paul Scott, it's not worked out at all over the course of this race. So multiple drivers now really having a race not to remember, and Albanese and Paul Scott in the GT3 Silver class falling into that category. But as they make the way on through this final stint, we do look from them to Craig Jones. And Jones here with 4 pit stops. In fact, having had more pit stops than anybody else in terms of the top 4 in the LMDH Gold class. And for Jones, he's fallen a long way back after looking to be quite a way ahead. But Gaz Williams, to be fair, has still got to make another pit stop, as we're to understand it. He will need to make 3 pit stops today. And as Jones makes his way up the hill and into turn number 6 with the SCCR Silversports driver, definitely doing everything he can, hit very fast still as De Santis into the pit lane. We called it, De Santis would need to make an extra stop. Jones as well, with this drive, he's made his way really back into contention to be on the podium, and he's catching a lot of traffic at the worst possible time, with Jamie Dorey just behind him as we ride aboard the gearbox here and look back. Dorey, they're being compromised on the entry into the carousel, so Jones buys himself some time, buys himself a couple of attempts as they make the way out to 10 and down towards 11. As they power their way through the King, De Santis still in his pit box. I look out my commentating box window, and as they make the way down towards turn number 12, Gaz Williams leading the race. You know he's got to pit at some point as they make the way through the right-hander of Canada corner here, and Jamie Dorey definitely in the hunt. It's all meshing together here in the battle for the podium, as Jones almost losing it a little bit there on the exit of turn 12, but also I think mindful snapping around Kevin Stringer, his teammate in the LMP2 class, as soon as possible. But out of the final corner he roars, and as he does, we do have De Santis leaving the pit lane as he makes his way up the hill. Where is De Santis? He's back out onto circuit already, so that is the gap. Raffaele De Santis is ahead. Meanwhile, Craig Jones a bit further back. The gap between the two of them is 7 seconds. In fact, it's 8 seconds there, all covered. Meanwhile, just in front of him, we've got a battle there between Jack Barker and Magnus Flotsabikak as they make their way down the hill. It's going to be almost free wide here as they come down to turn 2. Into 3 they go, and the LMDH drivers there trying to take the outside, but Barker gets a little wrong on the braking, and Stringer is contacted there as the made for racing driver loses the car, catches it, but in return, Kevin Stringer is sent to the wall as a result of the contact. Well, I don't think it was any malice meant by it, but for Kevin Stringer, he just cannot get a break here today as he turns on through and high. Santos comes on around and is collected there, and the SCCR Silversports driver, I think right now, when he sees that's happened as well, it has been a day where it's just not working out whatsoever. We keep saying it, he just seems to have this really rotten run of luck, and right now the number 11 LMP2 driver tucking in behind High Santos there, and I think trying to say to him, look, I know it's my fault, I do not want to put you under any pressure. Santos goes on around, and for Santos, well, I think it's a day which has just gone backwards there into the gravel. But meanwhile, as we look from them into the pits from the lead of the LMDH Gold class and making his way on out with plenty of time to play with as he heads back into turn number 1, Gaz Williams here for NXTGEN Racing Purple. He's made 3 stops compared to the majority's 4 stops, and now it is only 18.5 minutes plus the final lap to go as he heads on down towards turn number 3. As he comes on through for Dorey versus Jones, the battle for P3 continues to rage on as they make their way into 14, and Dorey catches a little bit there. GT3 traffic at the worst time, out club on the apex, but gets the power down, but the gap opens up a bit further to 1.2 seconds. Now the eagle-eyed viewer there, Davide Favo, asking the question, what happened to Stefan Vessels, who's dropped back to P4 in the GT3 Gold class? We will try to see whether there's been an incident. In fact, we have had an off-track for Stefan Vessels, and we can show you exactly what happened. So in this replay here, as he made his way down into Canada corner, flash of lights there from Stringer, and a bit of contact there. Looks like that's netcode contact for Vessels, because the 2 cars were not touching on our screen, and Vessels being made to go all the way along the wall, and a whack to the tyre barrier as well. And for the racing team Astra driver, well, I think it feels as though the contact was made there, but when he looks back at that, that is extremely unfortunate. That's the worst thing you could have happen, and from our perspective, it looks as though there was space between the 2 of them, but their internet connection saying otherwise. But for Vessels, what was looking to be a dead certain run to a podium finish in the GT3 Gold class, he's come out the pit lane, but he's only in P4 now, and the gap to Gavin Gardner in P3 stands at a grand total of 17.5 seconds, and Vessels, well, it has just not been the way his way to wrap up. And as we said earlier, anything can happen until the checkered flag falls. That's the one thing you never want to see happen when it's contact, and it looks to be netcode contact as he makes his way through turn number 14. but as he powers his way out and up towards turn number 1 once again, he'll carry on all the way to the end, presuming of course that anything can happen to the top 3 in front of him, albeit the gaps are quite considerable now, with the top 3 being separated by relative margins between 20 to 25 seconds, and Vettel's a further, what is there, 17 seconds off. So now he's just got to keep on pushing on and hope that something comes his way. But as he makes his way through turn number 1, one driver who'll be hoping that things do not go away from his way of racing at the moment, Paul Williams in the LMDH Silver class, after a brief scare with Raffaele De Santis early run at turn 13 into 14. The Speed 9 eSports driver here with an advantage 24 seconds continues to hold firm as he makes his way down towards Canada corner. Going on through on the inside here, and to really pick his place, to pick his moves through into the next part of the circuit, for the simple reason I think everybody now, with tightness kicking in, there will be those little moments of high risk versus high reward in terms of picking your way past the driver of a slower class. You can see that Williams just waits behind Barker and deciding to give him the run out and give himself all the straight to play with, and therefore not take any risks. He doesn't need to make any more troubling risks here towards the very end. But meanwhile, we look to Ben Bennyworth here in P3 in the GT3 Silver class, trying to chase after for overall position the GT3 bronze leader of Daniel Stimon as they make their way down towards turn number 5. And it's Porsche Power versus Mercedes monstrosity as they head into the next corner. And as they come through the left-hander, you see that 6.3 litre V8 engine, Mercedes doing hard work. As meanwhile, into the wall there, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that might just be the driver of Mark Sykes who's gone on around. And in fact, into the wall coming out of turn number 5, he's returned from the pit lane. But what exactly happened to Mark Sykes? Was he came down towards turn number 5, and we've got more drama as well to talk about shortly, ladies and gentlemen. The NXTGEN Racing orange driver here coming to the apex, and the rear just sliding loose on him, and in the end catching the car in time. Could have been far worse, but definitely a bit of a scare. Meanwhile, as we return to the live pictures, well, we can give you a key point here, which is that Jordan Baywa has fallen out of the top 3 in the GT3 bronze class, and well, he's had a major moment on circuit, and this is exactly what happened to Jordan Baywa. In fact, this is the aftermath of what happened to the privateers. He's going very slowly there, and that looks to be into the carousel. So what happened before that? We take a look further back as he made his way down into turn number 8, coming on through, gets the pad, and the rear kicks round, and in the end it's a nasty knock to the wall. An alternative camera angle there shows just grinding along the wall, tried to get the car back to get a return to the circuit, and as he did, we're losing a lot of time as everyone came from the inside line, and he tried to get it back up to speed, but in the end you can see the car just not wanting to point in a straight line whatsoever, and then to be towed to the pits. And what was looking to be a P2 in class has now fallen away completely, or at least a minimum P3, as it returns to live pictures. And with it, as Ben Bennyworth makes his way on past Daniel Stimon there into what is P19 overall, but no change of class position in the GT3s. Carrying on, it's definitely late drama in the works for so many, and well, we have now seen Mark Sykes and also Jordan Baywa both in a major instance of their own doing, one would suspect. But meanwhile, as we watch Ben Bennyworth here trying to now break away from Stimon, your bronze leader in the GT3s, we do look from them to Ollie Wayne here, who continues to chase down Jack Barker for P4 in the GT3 Silver class. These two coming together right towards the end of this race, and well, with that in mind, which one of them is going to emerge on top here? Will it be the Mercedes of Wayne, or will it be the Audi of Barker? You would imagine that given the pace that Wayne has been shown over the last couple of laps, and to put that in perspective, last lap at 205.89 for Wayne, for Barker at 207.66. Wayne will have the pace to close up with 13 minutes to go. Can Barker make that Audi wide enough for 2 and make sure that Wayne cannot come on through? We're heading on down the hill into the rain zone for turn 5. We jump on board here with the Mercedes driver as he heads up the hill. Making his way through the left-hander at turn number 6, of course, of the Mercedes. This is the section of the circuit where it will really show its key weakness, which is front-end understeer through medium to low-speed corners. The Mercedes quite the Goliath when it has to rotate through at low-speed corners, but the opposite is true. When it gets on the pad, it closes up very nicely. The Audi being the nimble car by comparison, being able to dance through the corners, but not having that top end. As they come through the carousel, when they're having to back off early out 9 into 10 in order to get that tighter run to the apex curve, with Barker just having no dirty air to worry about, Wayne having all the dirty air off of the back of the Audi as they come through the kink. You can see here both drivers running on tyres that have seen better days and therefore having to run the full width of the circuit as they come down towards Canada Corner. Wayne still half a second behind, gaining in the toe, but it's in these corners again where he'll lose the ground he's gained on the straights for the simple reason he has to back off the car slightly and focus on just getting those nice smooth runs through these corners, and therefore set himself up to run the straight as Barker loses the rear of the car coming out of 13, and it's a moment to the wall for Barker, coming a little bit wide there, and for Jack Barker, what was looking a great opening out, a second hour not to be remembered as he makes his way through 14, and I wonder if that may be a visit to the pit lane here for the wounded mate for racing Audi, or as he comes on through it. Meanwhile, there's more to talk about as Raffaele De Santis battling with Craig Jones, and I believe that is De Santis repassing Craig Jones as they make the way down towards Canada Corner. And these two fighting for P2 with Gaz Williams a whole 35 seconds clear on a free stopper. Meanwhile, De Santis and Jones both on 4 stops apiece, and as they make the way up through 13, it's De Santis who holds the position for now, but Craig Jones definitely trying to show his ferocity as he looks up the inside. De Santis there simply leaves the door open, he looks at the cutback, but Jones gets it hooked up quite nicely. Now it's the deployment as De Santis into the pit lane, and for De Santis it's one more pit stop with only 11 minutes remaining, and Jones now can go on to take P2, albeit he's got to worry about Jamie Dorey behind, and Dorey has closed up as a result of all this. The gap between them now standing on what is 1.5 seconds, and the Next Gen Racing orange driver can definitely see the target in the distance, but can he close it down and make it count and bring home what will be that second stop on the podium? But as he makes his way on down the second straight here, the Next Gen Racing orange, of course, now that Jones has got a bit of clear air in his head, isn't having to fight anymore, perhaps Jones will start to break away. That gap has already opened up a little bit further to what is 1.8 seconds. Of course, we don't know the relative states of the batteries of both cars here. Perhaps Dorey saving his battery up for the final 5 minutes. Meanwhile, Jones may be deploying it all right now in order to break away as much as he possibly can. But that's where drivers have had to play the balance and act over the entirety of the race as well. Balancing tyres, fuel and battery in the LMDHs. But who's got enough to make that late charge as they make the way to the closing moments here at Road America? Well, as our drivers head on through and the clouds come over in the state of Wisconsin, it's definitely been a thriller. There's been a lot of drama as well, and perhaps some of that drama and some of those incidents have spoiled us of some major classic battles, but at the same time, in the first endurance race of the season, it was always going to be just as much a question about survival as it was about stamina. And as Walker makes his way up the inside here of Espresso Rear to take overall position P17, up the inside of the P2 at GT3 Silver driver is the P5 GT3 Gold driver. Some exchange places there, no argy-bargy between the two of them. They're just focusing on making it to the end in terms of their races. But as they come on through turn 6 and 7 for them, it's only going to be approximately another 4 laps to turn after this one. Meanwhile, for our LMDH Gold leader here of Gaz Williams, looking unstoppable right now. We're not expecting any more pit stops for him for Next Gen Racing purpose. He comes on down towards turn number 5, and all he's got to do is keep it straight forward and not put a foot wrong now. And these are the moments of the race, of course, where all that pressure starts to build. Even if you're leading by such a margin, you don't want to make any mistakes. You don't want to become complacent, and therefore you could afford to turn things down but not fully turn it down, because of course you do enter that transient state in your mind whereby if you relax too much, you actually become much more susceptible to making errors. And of course, the great Ayrton Senna, a driver known for the fact he always had to drive at a very high percentage of his potential, because if he started to turn it down too much, the likelihood of making a mistake became even higher compared to when he was running at 100%. And that's how our drivers are geared here in terms of some of them. They have to constantly be looking for the next thing to battle or concentrate on, or putting in more laps. Otherwise, if they turn it down at all, they start to become just a little bit unconcentrated, and with that, those mistakes just suddenly happen in a flash. But not for Williams right now, as he makes his way on through Canada Corner and heads on to what will be another lap very shortly. Of course, having already turned 60 laps, we're expecting something in the region of 64 laps when it's all said and done for our LMDH leaders. But meanwhile, looking back to Ole Martin Bjork, we can see here tucked in behind Jack Barker and the damaged Audi there, not having any straight line speed now, and for Bjork, he'll just simply try to sail on through when he can, but at the same time he's got to be conscious of the fact he does have there one of the LMDHs trying to cut behind, and that is Jamie Dorey, who sweeps on through around the outside as they make the way out to turn 12, and with Barker, there's contact with Dorey as Dorey looks on one side to the other. Barker covers off the other way. Bjork there puts the brakes on, and as they come up the hill, Meanwhile, behind Eric Silverstone just arrives on the scene of the instant and makes his way through there clear. But great reactions from early Martin Milk to put the brakes on when he saw it unfold in time and not turn it into a freeway instant. But for Jamie Dorey, I think what charge he had after Craig Jones has now been completely knocked away from him, and he'll have to settle for P3. Very unfortunate for both drivers, but they both carry on, and neither driving into the pit lane and both trying to get to the end still. As Silverstone here make his way down towards turn number 1. You can see Albanese behind, staying close here, and I think looking to make his way through. Silverstone simply not covering it off and deciding to let it go here, given it's not a battle for class position. As they make their way down towards turn number 3, we do say hello there to Performance Link, and I do believe that may be in the YouTube chat. Tom being, of course, represented at Team at Performance Link eSports, and well, we do say hello to Tom, and also saying that, sorry I couldn't make it this evening, guys, had to pick up my new rig. Well, that's completely understandable, Tom, and we do look forward to seeing you out on circuit in the next round. But speaking of looking to the circuit right now, we've got even more drama, ladies and gentlemen. Espresso Green has been towed to the pits from what was at the time running for a fighting podium position, and we've also got Jack Barker into the pit lane there with damage to the car. But what happened to Espresso Green is the question. Coming on down through turn number 9 and 10 through the carousel, the car letting loose there. I think there's more to this than just that. I think there's been a knock to the wall. We take a look back a little bit earlier on in this 53rd lap, and as he came on down through turn 7 into 8, there's contact there with one of the LMDHs. Now, who was that we made contact with? I think that might be Raffaele De Santis who's in contact with, and the two of them coming together, and the DRS eSport driver return as well. But that damage has knocked Espresso Rien to the pits, and De Santis were just trying to carry on through, but both of them there in a major bit of contact. And for De Santis, well, he's still P4 in the LMDH Gold class. For Espresso Rien, that puts him all the way down to what is P6 in the GT3 Silver class. Jack Barker returns on circuit P5 in class, but definitely we continue to get more and more drama here, and I wonder if there's going to be any more. I think a lot of our race leaders right now in their classes will not want any more dramas. Nigel Stock in the pit lane from the lead of the LMP2 class. I think that's just an emergency stop to get some fuel in the car to make sure he's 100% safe, but to be fair, when he's gotten over in a minute's advantage over his nearest rival, Kevin String, he won't want to worry about that too much. But meanwhile, Daniel Stimmon definitely right now looking at versus Ben Beddyworth, but I don't think he wants to push his luck here. I think he just wants Ben Beddyworth to either let this go or get a move on, because of the simple reason he does not want to compromise what looks to be an absolutely certain win right now in the cars by a margin of 9.8 to 10 seconds. But of course, every moment he spends behind Beddyworth, particularly if Beddyworth falls off the pace, he might be a little bit worried about the fact he is losing time. Meanwhile, Craig Jones, currently in P2, he's had a major off-track quite recently. It's dropped him right back into the clutches of Jamie Dorey, and this is what happened to Craig Jones in the battle for P2 in the LMDH Gold class that's forced him backwards. He's coming down through the carousel with the GT3 going slowly. He just puts two tyres onto the grass there whilst trying to rely on the grip and the downforce, but not enough grip anymore on that outside line for the SCCR SimSports driver. And with the damage he's picked up there, that's going to wound the car on the straights. He's going to have to really now every corner in terms of carrying the speed. Of course, Jamie Dorey there in a car that's recently been in the wars as well. So both drivers right now running cars with wounds on them, and therefore not in optimal condition. But can Jones just do enough here with 3.5 minutes to go plus the final lap to hold on for P2 and what will be a deserved P2, given the fact he's had to make one more pit stop than Dorey behind as he makes his way into turn number 14. Well, Dorey is closing, but as they make the way out to turn number 14, we ride on board and look back here from Craig Jones's car as they head onto their 63rd lap. Now charging on down, you can see Dorey closing massively here, and Dorey's got so much straight line speed by comparison, and he looks up the inside. I don't think this is going to be a question of battling. I think it's done, and Dorey just simply sails on through. With the damage that Jones has got, it's completely stripped all the speed out of his car on the straights, and Dorey moves into P2. The next driver for Jones to worry about is Raffaele De Santis, who is a further what is a whole lap behind, so he doesn't have to worry too much. But for Jones right now, that's going to be heartbreaking for him and SCCR SimSports. They have been really spoiled of results today, and as they make their way down towards turn number 5, Jones now will just want to bring home that final podium position as they make the way towards the end of this race. But meanwhile, whilst they make the way and set their differences, we see here Benjamin McCluskey closed up behind Nigel Stock for overall position. The LMDH driver here will very shortly, I think, look up the inside into turn 5. He's going to be sensitive about it, given the fact they do have Bekeka just on the run out the corner already, and also what is there, Eric Benson, the leader of the GT3 Gold class. McCluskey goes up the inside to turn 6, then gets it done. But Benson now, I think, will be aware of the fact he's got LMDH and then LMP2 coming on through, and he won't want to get in the way as McCluskey switches back to the inside and comes on around there. And the late dances to the inside, of course, what may confuse the GT3 drivers. Some of them reacted at last moment, but not the case there, as both drivers managed to navigate it safely. But as we look to Eric Benson here right now, he's continued to hold his grip on the lead of the GT3 Gold class, and this grip of what is 27.5 seconds over Dorey, and he's not letting it go at all. It has been an absolutely dominant run, but at the same time, we've got to give credit to Gavin Gardner and Stefan Vessels. Both drivers, their P3, P4, with 3 pit stops on the cards, and have made it work in terms of being inside that top 5, with Ryan Walker on a 2-stop and Elon Gates to open its 2-stop. For what is Walker, it'll be a P5 finish when it's all said and done. But so many drivers in the end having their races impacted by incidents. It's all been about that survival, unless you're Eric Benson, where it's just simply been about not making a mistake, not getting it wrong, and just steering clear of any drama. And that's exactly what he's done so far, as he makes his way onto another lap, and what for him may just be his final lap of racing today, as he heads on through to turn number 1. As he comes on down here, and it will mean that our lead GT3 driver does 57 laps under race pace conditions here, and very comfortably leading the class, as we do see at Frederick Stensbold Dorey making his way through turn number 1 at the moment, with Jochen Siegert coming on front his inside out of the run to 2 and 3. In fact, that's turn number 14. The gap's a lot longer, a lot larger than what we thought, as he makes his way on down. We can see here the Team Slow-Mo driver showing no signs of pushing it too hard now, just simply wanting to bring home that P1, P2 for Team Slow-Mo as he heads onto his final lap as well. But coming on down, meanwhile, here is your overall and LMDH Gold leader of Gaz Williams for NXTGEN Racing Purple. And as he heads on to his final lap with 15 seconds to spare, it'll be a 65th and final lap here. And the number 90 driver with an advantage of 44.5 seconds. He just needs to bring this lap home. He does not need to do anything spectacular. He doesn't need to do anything thrilling. No fireworks. All that is between him and the win here in the first endurance round of the season is one lap of concentration as he heads on down the hill. As he comes on down, all the battles have subsided now, ladies and gentlemen, and therefore we are just waiting to see whether there is any last minute drama for any drivers. Of course, we do not wish it on any of them, but we have seen so much drama here today as Stillman makes his way down towards the Canada corner at turn 12 for Rossum's Universal Robots. He will get one more lap in the cars. We've got a car off there, and that is, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that's Bennyworth. It's gone sideways going through 12, so he's got it wrong, but he's brought it back together. Has that cost him any positions in class? No, he's still P2 in the GT3 Silver class by an advantage of what is going to be 8 seconds there over Ollie Wayne, but they do settle their tides. But meanwhile, speaking of a driver here, and this goes to show you why you never give up after a difficult start. Wayne, of course, with that start that saw him drop all the way down the order, now back to P3 in the GT3 Silver class. I don't think he's going to quite believe the fact he's third in the class as he makes his way up towards his final lap. But meanwhile, we must look from him back to Gaz Williams here for as he makes his way through 13. It has been a very strong run. He came in today feeling he had an advantage over his peers. We did. He's had the pace, he's had the consistency, he's had the strategy, and as he makes his way to the timeline, it's NXTGEN Racing Purple's Gaz Williams who takes the win over on the LMDH Gold class today by a margin in the end of what will be 45.2 seconds over Jamie Dorey as he comes on through. But as he makes his way to the line, we see that just behind him, Frederick Stensbold Dorey making it P2 in the GT3 Gold class, and Stefan Albanese P4 in the Silver class of the GT3s. But as more drivers make the way on around, we will very shortly have what is there, Kevin Stringer coming to the line just ahead of Gavin Gardner. Kevin Stringer P2 in the end of P2 class for SCCR Sim Sports, and Gavin Gardner in the end recovers to P3 for Verona Motorsport in the GT3 Gold class, and what's been a topsy-turvy day of race for him and so many. Meanwhile, our next podium finisher in class will be Jamie Dorey as he comes to the line. He'll pick up P2 in the LMDH Gold class and NXTGEN Racing Orange, and that shows you the gap between himself and the class winner, as also there Stefan Vessel's P4 in the G3 Gold class, and then we will have Craig Jones, who makes it the final spot on the LMDH Gold podium today for SCCR Simsports. He crosses the timeline ahead of very shortly what will be Baz Meacham, who comes on through to take the win in the GT3 Silver class there. He brings it home, not without drama, but it's his first win in the GT3 Silver class. He'll be pleased with that, and then we do see that, I believe, behind, and that is, no, in fact, that's not Daniel Stimman, but meanwhile, Paul Williams crosses the line there. Your winner in the LMDH Silver class, alongside him Nigel Stock, your winner in the LMP2 class, the former for Speed9 Esports, the latter the privateer, and then we will have your final class winner of today, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up for Rossum's Universal Robots, Daniel Stimman, who crosses the line there in P1 in the GT3 Bronze class by a margin of 6.5 seconds in the end over Woody's Ingar Almklov, as he crossed line ahead of Ben Bennyworth there, P2 in the GT3 Silver class, and then it will be Ollie Wayne shortly, but Ingar Almklov there, P2 in the GT3 Bronze class for Team Slomer leftovers as he crosses the line, and he makes his way on through. We then do have your P3 driver make his way out the final corner, but not without instant there, Mark Baker in the LMDH Silver class as he heads on through, and Eric Benson meanwhile has finished his race. He is your GT3 Gold winner. We didn't see him cross the line, but the Team Slow-Mo driver is the only GT3 to do a 58th lap under his own volition, under race conditions, and then we will very shortly have, as we said a moment ago, I believe we've already in fact had what is Mark Baker across the finish line in what is P3 in the LMDH Silver class there as he makes his way on down. But that's all of our podium finishers having crossed line. Indeed, everybody has finished their respective races now, ladies and gentlemen, as we're to understand it, and we can take you through those race results, and I suspect there's going to be a number of stewarding inquiries that will need to be settled before we do see the final results published. But as we do bring the results up here for our first endurance round of the season in round 4 of season 2 of the Proto GT3 Championship, as hosted by NXTGEN Racing here on iRacing at Road America today. Overall results wise, we can see that Gaz Williams taking the overall win in the LMDH class, and also in the LMDH Gold class by a margin of 43.6 seconds in the end for NXTGEN Racing Purple over NXTGEN Racing Orange's Jamie Dorey, with CCR Simsports Craig Jones completing the overall podium and the LMDH Gold podium with it P3. Then Paul Williams in P4, your LMDH Silver winner for Speed9 Esports ahead of teammate Jochen Siegert, and between the pair and Mark Baker, who completed the LMDH Silver podium, Raffaele De Santis and Magna Yonland, with Benjamin McCluskey at P9 and Nigel Stock completing the overall top 10. Your winner in the LMP2 class, the privateer, by a lap over Kevin Stringer, the man who just found the drama and not looking for it at the same not looking at it at all today, but just having a hugely bad run of luck. But the SCCR Simsports driver denied the win here at Road America, P2 instead in the LMP2 class, but he gave it everything to be fair, and that's why he is the best of the rest outside the top 10. Now, focusing on our individual class podiums here in the overall standings, we then come on to our overall GT3 winner in P12 overall, and your GT3 Gold winner of Eric Benson there in a flawless race for Team Slow-Mo, followed up a lap down by Frederick Stensborg-Duray there for Team Slow-Mo as well. It's a Team Slow-Mo 1-2 in the GT3 overall and Gold categories, with Gavin Gardner there completing the GT3 overall and Gold podium for Verano Motorsport. And then we can see Baz Meacham in P16, your GT3 Silver winner, the privateer there ahead of your GT3 Bronze winner from Rossum's Universal Robots of Daniel Stimman. And then we have Ben Bennyworth in P18, the privateer, and second place in what is the GT3 Silver class. Carrying on down, Ingar Almklov then, your second place GT3 Bronze driver in at P19 for Team Slow-Mo leftovers in a solid drive today, and really his best drive of the season so far, I'd go out and say it. Then we do have Ollie Wayne, who finished P3 in the GT3 Silver class for NXTGEN Racing Purple in P22 overall, ahead of what was the P3 finisher in the GT3 Bronze class of Eric Silverstone in that P25 position for Team Slow-Mo Black. But as we continue to look through the results there, of course, we did have two major retirements today, and that was the retirement of Paul Scott, P33 there, retiring 24 laps from the end, and Callum Jenkins retiring early on, 59 laps from the end of the privateer. But otherwise, out of 34 starters, we had 32 finishers, albeit a number a lap down, including Mark Sykes there, who was our last finisher on circuit for NXTGEN Racing Orange in P32, and we're at third place in the LMP2 class. But now coming on to the individual classes, to give you a recap of their finishing positions. We start off with the LMDH Gold class, and we can see here Gaz Williams, your winner, by 43.6 seconds over Jamie Dorey and Craig Jones, with Raffaele De Santis there at P4 in a difficult day for the DRS eSport driver, but he knows he had the pace today, but he just didn't have the luck to go with it, and Magna Jonlund completing the top 5 with Benjamin McCluskey at three laps down at the finish, the last of the finishers in the LMDH Gold class. We then come on to the LMDH Silver class, and we can see here your winner of Paul Williams by 25.5 seconds in for Speed 9 eSports, with Jochen Siegert and Mark Baker completing the podium. And it is a Speed 9 eSports podium ahead of the privateer of Callum Jenkins for that early retirement. And then we come on to the LMP2 class to complete our proto classes. And we see Nigel Stock taking the win by 1 lap for the privateer outfit ahead of SCCR Silversports' Kevin Stringer, with Mark Sykes there 11 laps down at the finish for NXTGEN Racing Orange. And as we come on to the GT3 classes, we started the GT3 Gold class, and we see Eric Benson there taking the win. And again, just to point out, the only driver in the GT3s to do a 58th lap. They were allowed to do it because they finished ahead of when the LMDH Gold driver finished the race. And that was, of course, Gaz Williams taking the overall win. But Benson got onto the 58th lap before Williams got across the finish line. And the Team Slow-Mo driver there leading a 1-2 for Team Slow-Mo ahead of teammate Frederick Stensborg-Duré, with Garen Garner P3 for Ron and Motorsport ahead of racing team Astra Stefan Vessels, with that late instant cost him a chance at a podium, a potential P2 as a minimum, but he'll be looking to bounce back next time out. And then Magnus Bierkeka P5 for Team Slow-Mo leftovers ahead of Ryan Walker, with Ole Martin Mjort P7 ahead of Johan Ersson, and then Aaron Razy on his debut, finishing at 9th place there in class. Coming on to the GT3 Silver class meanwhile, we can see here Baz Beecham taking the win in the end by 37 seconds almost, the privateer ahead of Ben Bennyworth, with Ollie Wayne P3 in a great recovery drive there for NXTGEN Racing Purple. Stefan Albanese missing out in the end with a late instant, cost him very dear for DRS eSport, finishing a lap down with Team Slow-Mo leftovers. Espresso Rien also in a major instant right towards the end of the race, losing out what could have been a guaranteed podium, but he'll be looking to bounce back from this result. And then Jack Barker there with a number of instances of the second hour of his race, cost him dear for Made for Racing, but again, he'll learn from those ahead of Paul Scott for NXTGEN Racing Orange with that late retirement. And then we come on to the GT3 Bronze class last but not least, and we can see here that Daniel Stimman taking the win for Rossum's Universal Robots by 6.5 seconds over Ingar Almklov. Both drivers really coming on strong today, but it was the Rossum's Universal Robots driver who found the strategy, the pace, and the consistency and never put a foot wrong. Almklov, near flawless performance, but not quite able to make the win, but ahead of Eric Sveston there, the Team Slow-Mo Black driver completing the podium a lap down, ahead of Jordan Baybois, the driver who was due to finish P2, but a huge instant cost him extremely dear and took him out of the running, but still finishing ahead of Jorge Santos, who finished 3 laps down at the finish and was P5 in the GT3 Bronze class. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes all of our finishing positions for our drivers in the respective classes and overall. And now it's time for us to get ready for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. We'll be back in approximately 10 minutes for those, but before we do go away, do let us know in the chat what's been your favourite moment of today. And we're back in 10 minutes, if not sooner, for those post-round interviews. You won't want to miss them. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our post-round interviews with our selected drivers. Now today, we've only got one volunteer available to us, and that is the privateer of Nigel Stock. And I think it's quite understandable, a lot of our drivers may be exhausted after their racing from today, and who can blame them, to be fair, given the level of intensity of the race in action, the first endurance race of the season, and over the tour, as we did see plenty of drama for drivers left, right and centre. But Nigel has offered us his time, and with it, he's going to jump in with us very shortly. In fact, he joins us now. Nigel, thank you for joining us. It looked absolutely tiring out there on the Road America circuit, regardless of what class you're in, whether it's LMP2 like yourself, GT3 or LMDH. But in the end, looking at your own race, you brought home the win in a class that seemed to be filled with drama from start to finish, starting from the run into turn number 1, and it never let up. You must be absolutely pleased with your win. And I do apologise, Nigel, if you're saying something, it's not coming through on our end.
Hello, what about now?
Yep, that's starting to come through. Could you possibly make it just a little bit louder?
What about now?
Spot on, there we go.
Oh, good. I said that it was, what was it? I think it makes up for last week with the not having the like losing the win in the last few corners. So I feel like it makes up for that, really.
Oh, indeed. After the heartbreak of last week and today, everything seemed to go right for yourself. But let's start off with that race start, as we're just seeing it in the background at the moment on the broadcast. A difficult start for all three of you in the LMP2 class, with Kevin String and Mark Sykes coming together, but it looked as though you had a bit of a wobble into turn number 1.
Yeah, I think it was just me trying to sort of dodge it, really, and then the back end wanted to take the lead and had to fight to try and keep it going in the straight line and trying to keep it out the wall, but then managed to get it. I mean, it was a shame, really, because it sort of ended any sort of challenge really there, really, because I mean, like, it sort of put I think Stringer was on a not a brilliant strategy, and then Mark sort of put him on the back foot, and then obviously had problems during the race, which then meant it was just sort of a bit of just driving around, really.
Oh, indeed. And as we see that instant just play out right now, you having to take that evasive action and just catching the car in time, of course. With that happening, with Stringer being involved in a couple of follow-up instances as the race went on, and Mark Sykes also being involved in other incidents, you never really got to battle with them, even though Stringer was trying to close up the pace gradually. Surviving at Road America is never easy when you've got over 30 cars on the circuit of all different classes and speeds. Just take us through that dynamic in dealing with firstly the GT3s, which you've got plenty of them in the run to turn 5 on that open lap, of course.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge, really, with all the it just felt like you're in traffic all the time, really. Maybe I was a bit too aggressive with some people. It's caused problems as well for maybe other people, which I do apologise if I affected other people's races. But sometimes you just have to try and focus on your own race and just try and get through like the traffic as best you can, really.
Oh, indeed, and having to make the best of each and every situation you approach, and of course, having to also manage when the LMDHs come up behind you with their superior speed, but very similar approach to the corners compared to the LMP2s. In fact, I would argue some corners the LMP2 is a bit faster.
Oh, yeah, sometimes it feels like it. Yeah, you sort of catch up and they go past you, then they sort of don't seem to go anywhere. You sort of just want them to get out of the way, really. Go on, then off you go. Sometimes you just have to be a bit patient and try and get the toe down the straights to help your times. But yeah.
Oh, indeed. Now, coming on to strategy, of course, a big play in this one. Even just managing the race for yourself, we did see in the end deliver what was a 4... In fact, we saw you do 5 pit stops then coming in, but it was a 4-stop strategy. Was that always your plan to do 4 stops, or did you change things up because of the way the race played out?
Oh, well, I think that's the best I could do with fuel. I mean, I'm not brilliant at saving fuel or anything, so with everything that was going on, I wasn't really trying to focus on saving too much. I was just trying to get to the end the best I could, really. Just if it had to come in, I'll fill it.
That makes logical sense. Playing it smart, playing it safe as well, and not having to focus too much on the fuel saving. Now, of course, with that in mind, and also tyres, we did have that requirement to change all 4 tyres on the car. How was the tyre wear, given how many right-hand corners there are at this circuit?
I only changed them the ones like the regulation. I mean, I probably should have changed them more, but as the track temperature went up, the wear sort of seemed to go up as well, with obviously the track overheating and stuff. So I was just trying to look after the tyres in the second half of the race, and I think they were getting a bit tight, especially the left front was getting quite worn out towards.
Well, indeed, the left-hand side tyres really taking the beating with so many corners like the carousel and also the kink into Canada corner. But in imagine those tyres and avoiding that overheating is, say, a critical part to success. But also the other part is trying to keep it on track for a whole 2 hours. And we didn't see too many mistakes from yourself. What's your secret to keeping it on track at Road America?
Hello?
Yep, you're coming through again?
Keyboard's messing around. Yeah, it's just, I just sort of, well, I mean, I wasn't really having to push too much of obviously what happened. Mainly just trying to keep it on the track for the rest of the race. Really, which was my goal, was just trying not to make as many, fewest mistakes as possible. Really.
Fair play, and with that lack of mistakes and keeping it on track, it means that you've taken the win today, and with it, taken the lead of the championship going into next week's round at Spa-Francorchamps. Now, given the fact this is the first time this season you've led the championship, if my memory serves me correctly, how are you feeling going into the sprint feature combo at the classic Belgian circuit?
Well, just trying to keep doing what I'm doing, really. Just trying to keep collecting the points, really, and hopefully carry on just building momentum.
Well, a lot of momentum coming your way, it would seem, and we look forward to seeing how you get on at Spa in a week's time. But just before we do let you go, Nigel, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to or a thank you to on the broadcast this evening?
Oh, sorry, my keyboard died. Just you and NXTGEN and friends and family, really.
That's no problem at all. Nigel, thank you for the kind words, and well, thank you for joining us in the interview room. With that, congratulations once again on an emphatic win on a very challenging endurance round, and we do look forward to seeing how you get on at Spa-Francorchamps in a week's time.
Thank you, bye.
All the best. So hearing there from our winner in the LMP2 class of Nigel Stock, as we see him cruising his way on in the background. And what a very difficult race for the LMP2 class in general, because that major incident on the open lap really setting the tone, and we almost saw all 3 drivers in the class end up in the wall of some description at turn 1. But Stock, with cat-like reflex in the end, avoiding becoming a victim of the incident between Sykes and Stringer, and in the end being able to bring it on home over the duration. But of course, like we heard there, in the end he was focusing more and more on just simply staying out of trouble, not making mistakes and keeping it on circuit. Having to imagine some overheating on the tyres, and also that left side tyre wear, particularly the front left tyre, which stood out. We talked a lot about the left-hand side tyres taking that beating for a number of key corners around this right-hand corner-dominated circuit, and then for Stocky managed to balance it all out and put together a great result that's given him a win, and with it the championship lead. But of course, given the closeness of the pace between himself, Kevin Stringer and Mark Sykes, it could ebb and flow still, and the question will be, can he hold on to the top spot come the end of the sprint and feature in Belgium in a week's time? Well, that we'll have to find out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our single interview for today. You got to hear there from Nigel Stock, our winner in the LMP2 class, finishing P10 overall, but the winner in class. A strong performance from him, and we can understand the majority of our drivers, I think, needing to just take a rest and turn things down a notch after an absolutely exhausting race. But with that, of course, for us in the viewing perspective, us as spectators, an absolute thriller, and I think it has set the tone for the weeks to come as we move closer and closer to the halfway transition point for this season. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show and you want to know more about the Next Gen racing community, then why not check out firstly our official website, address there, nextgenracing.co.uk, where you can go to heart of all the information with regards to our upcoming series and what we represent here at Next Gen Racing when it comes to a fair and equal sim racing community for all, and also the work we do outside of the virtual circuit in the real world. Alternatively, if you don't want to go to our website, you can always go to our official Facebook group, and that's at facebook.com/groups/NextGenRacing. And again, that's where you'll be able to link up with a vast array of the community members and also hear about all of our upcoming series as well as on the website. But even when you go to there, you'll be made to feel welcome. There's no doubt about it. We're always welcoming newcomers, whether fully experienced or rookies in the racing age. But with that, speaking of the racing age, we go back through the ages, of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we make our way to Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps for round number 5. And next time out, in a week's time on Wednesday the 15th of February, our drivers will be making their way to the hallowed halls and tarmac of the Belgian circuit. Previously a major extension through the Ardennes Forest, now more cultivated with regards to its expanse. But the one thing that's always stayed the same about Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, it is a circuit to be loved with its high-speed corners, its mixture of corners, and also its extended straights. It is a circuit that's like no other for multi-class racing, and who will come out on top in the respective classes then and there, we'll have to find out then. But until then, we've been Next Gen Racing. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.